faster. Living off borrowed time. The clock faster. Living off borrowed time. The clock tick faster. Living off borrowed time. The clock tick 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 tick. The clock tick 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 faster. Living off borrowed time. The clock tick faster. Living off borrowed time. Living off borrowed time, the clock tick faster. Living off borrowed time, the clock tick faster.
All right, time for me to botch the intro. Living Off Borrowed Time podcast. I'm Patrick, he's Caleb, and we are incredibly honored to have a guest we've been trying to have on for a very, very long time, and really the only guest we can have for the episode that we're about to discuss. RYM legend. The reason I got into writing, writing on RYM, I should say, and the reason that so many of my reviews have so many numbers that don't add up to anything on the reason so many other reviewers have numbers that don't necessarily have math that doesn't make sense on them. The one, the only, Spitta expert. He wrote, dropping suckers off is exactly what his job is. David Amadon, Nodima, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
How am I pronouncing that? Nodima or Nodima?
I think we noticed that one time on the Lost podcast. I like to think it's Nodima, but I think a lot of people think it's Nodima, so I'm fine with either.
I'm going to go with Nodima because that's how it's always sounded in my head.
Okay.
Me too. Yeah.
It's like I'm always David to me, but people think I'm Dave, so I don't know.
Well, we had Marshall Mars Bars on our last one about Wu-Tang Clan Part 1, and he actually, I can't believe no one ever did this before. I asked for the pronunciation of my RYM name, and it's supposed to be Patrique because that was like a nickname I have and in real life that I was going by, and I just kind of did like a stylized spelling of that for a lot of my online persona, but no one's ever asked about that before. And then I often we get people on seeing me as that French guy for that. So, or Spanish. It's not even supposed to be either of those things. So, just like to make sure I'm pronouncing people's names properly.
Yeah,
because
nobody ever said just Patrick. Nobody's like, it's just Patrick.
Yeah. It's just Patrick. But
I always thought
Patrique,
it was Patrique for what it's worth.
Yeah, Patrique. Well, it is Patrique. Technically, it was supposed to be pronounced Patrique. I'll go Patrique. Patrique A sometimes is what it gets mispronounced as, but. Since I mispronounced so many artist names on the show, I'd at least like to get the guest names right. But, anyway, so as I kind of rambled about in the intro here, we will be discussing Currency, the Hot-Spitta, not, in fact, Hospital. He's been very clear about this fact. But apparently people were mispronouncing that as well with his pronounced Southern accent. An artist that I think we are probably the two people who've written the most about on RYM. You probably more than me, although as later in his career, I think you kind of fallen off on following him because just so much material. And I've tried to keep up, but even recently it's been harder. So we're going to try as best we can to cover the entirety of his work. Definitely not going to be able to do that in one episode. We'll get as far as we can in this one, which will hopefully, Wyatt willing, we'll get this out on the only day it could come out on, 4/20. And then sometime in the near future, we'll have a second volume to cover what we don't cover in this one. So let's get to it. So in my research, basically Discogs and RYM and Google, what have you, there was everybody knows Spitta started on No Limit, but there was on Discogs it says that he started with something called Tough Guys Entertainment in 2001. I wasn't able to find a goddamn thing about this. Do you know anything about this, Nodima?
No, that fascinates me as well. I don't even know what that label is. I can't even think of. I didn't even look it up, honestly, because I was hoping that maybe at some point you found some answers about that.
Nope.
I have no idea what that is.
Is that like proto TDE?
Yeah. Is there anybody else attached to that at some point?
I Googled it as hard as I could, and 4 or 5 pages back got me nothing. It's tough spelled in the Sonic Youth fashion, TUFF.
Yeah.
It sounds to me like probably something along the lines of that Real Talk label, like a Fly By Night.
Sure,
And
yeah.
As best I can tell,
God, Real Talk.
he did
I forgot about that.
with them. There's no releases attached to it, nothing on YouTube. I'll keep looking. Maybe I'll come up with something by part 2. Maybe Wyatt, our own Indiana Jones, can unearth something on DatPiff.
Are there? Well, as long as DatPiff still is on the internet, it seems like all those mixtape sites are going away, which is partially why this currency discussion might be worth having. Is there anybody else assigned to that label though on Discogs, or is it just him?
I didn't actually click through. I don't think the link goes anywhere. Actually,
okay. Yeah, like I'm just
that's
really.
Why I started Googling.
Yeah.
It was a dead ass link. That was just 2001. It only said it's not 2000, it's just 2001, which he would be. How old was he at that point? He was in like 17, 18.
I don't know. Yeah, he would have been like Lil Wayne when he started, like 7. Well, a little older, but yeah, like 17, 18. Yeah. That
so then
sense.
we move on to the No Limit era, which would be 2001 to 2003, which was just not the glory days of No Limit. The tank was running out of gas at this point, and he only had a handful of features on not the famous Soulja Slim album, and C Murder. Well, his first feature was on C Murder album. This would be after, I believe, C Murder went up the river for not, murder, obviously. The crime you would expect. I was going to do a riff there about not theft, not, but that riff died. And so all these features are originally on my plan was to listen to all of the albums themselves, but they all look pretty bad, so I didn't do that. And also, they're all collected on SportsCenter, so we might as well just start with SportsCenter. His first mixtape, and very much a rough baby picture of where he would go from, like, his very rough. Because my impression on this tape is that you can tell it's him because of his very distinctive voice, calling himself the Hot-Spitta, but in terms of like content, flow, he's trying to sound like a No Limit guy. He's not trying to sound like who he would become.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I mean it's going to take many more years before he sounds anything like the Currency most people know. And this is like a very unfamiliar Currency overall, I would say. And especially because he's freestyling overall, like he's doing fabulous beats, he's doing like hitman beats from like the Bad Boy era. Like he's really trying to be like just your run of the mill like mainstream rapper, and that is not his skill set. So it's an awkward listen for sure.
Yeah, the most fun thing I think on here is which one is, I think that track 5. One track has a really, really cheap loop of the NBA on NBC theme. I want to say it's that.
Yeah.
And it kind of reminds me of the J.R. Ryder song off early Dipset tape. I think it's called The Cake Off or something. And that's just like one of the best sports themes of all time. So just hearing somebody rap over that's always going to be fun. Beyond that, it's just, some of the beats he picks here, it's like fun for a nostalgia kick, I guess, to hear him going over like Aftermath stuff like Patiently Waiting in the Club. But he doesn't sound distinct. He doesn't really own these beats at all, which is really what you want out of a tape like this, is somebody to like come over and like come up with a freestyle that's going to make their own stamp on this stuff. And he doesn't necessarily. The only real sign of him, like he would be, Mr. Marcello shows up a few times, who is his brother or cousin, some relation. I want to say cousin, and he would show up.
Cousin.
And he shows up. I think he gets locked up for a while, and then he shows up again circa Weekend at Burnie's era, and intermittently from that. So, it's a curiosity. I can't believe we didn't cover this on our Baby Pictures episode, actually, which was where we went over like the Freddie Gibbs Live from Gary and early Denzel Curry, all that stuff. So, but it's like all those tapes. It's just, again, something you listen to once to be like, oh, that's where he started, and moving on.
Like I'm just looking at my notes over it, and it's just like mostly it's just you can see that he could like figure out how to like make something catchy, but the verses are nothing. So unless you're like really diehard into Currency, why would you listen to it? Like
The funniest thing on here actually is there's at least one time where he's like, "I don't smoke weed. That's how I stay focused." Which
I mean, he is coming.
really
He is
likes
coming out of the
smoking
era of weed rappers that definitively say they don't smoke weed while they like go out on tour and smoke weed on stage.
There's also that's right up there with the Loot Pack album, where they have the track about how the Madlib produced track about how they're better than other rappers because they don't get weeded.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
So, noted anti-weed rapper Lord Quaz. So
Yes, yes. No weed, only mushrooms.
no weed, only salvia, salvia blunts.
I only need the most trippy shit.
Oh, that just reminds me of a. Never mind. There's a really dumb discussion going on in our Discord right now about 3-6 Mafia. You said trippy, which reminded me of Juicy. Never mind.
Stay trippy, fam.
Stay trippy, me. And Currency stayed trippy. He tripped himself right off of No Limit and into the Cash Money, Young Money army. In 2005, we welcomed Currency back with his first tape on Young Money, Welcome Back Currency, which has one of the most 2005 cheap-ass mixtape covers you can imagine, where he's inserted himself into the Welcome Back Cotter artwork, I guess, with some super Comic Sans font going on here, just Comic Sans as hell. This is almost the same. This is a bit of the same stuff in terms of going over beats of the time, but they're way better beat selection. It's way better edited, and he seems more like himself, but it's still a work in progress.
Yeah,
he picked good beats, but it's still kind of, it has more personality. I didn't listen to the whole Sports Center tape, but just inferring from the conversation. Like I heard this one the other day, and it does have like more personality, but it's not, obviously he's still nowhere near where he would be in a few years after this.
Yeah, and it was a tough moment for him personally because he was joining Cash Money, but he was doing this Ambitions of a Writer freestyle, and it's very short and it's very uninteresting, really, overall. And at the same time, Lil Wayne was doing the Dedication freestyle over Ambitions of a Writer, which is maybe one of the most like definitive and maybe the only time he really got incredibly political, like in a very specific way. And so it's like a really weird juxtaposition of like where those two guys are at in terms of like what Cash Money is trying to become.
That's interesting. Because Dedication 2 ends with he goes over the Ludacris beat, the Georgia beat, and does Georgia Bush and into of a Rider, which is the best mixtape ones of all time.
Mm-hmm.
And really. Yeah, I mean, there are a handful of Wayne political moments after that, I think. He does, but they're on bad albums. Like, I think he does
sure.
God, it's on, like, I'm Not a Human Being, too. He does God Bless America, which is God Bless America, this Godless America, where he still manages to find a punchline about eating pussy on there, which kind of undermines the whole point. And I think on Rebirth, there's, like, some political lines on American Star, which I don't blame anybody for not remembering that. But yeah, in terms of like when he was actually like coming up and like being driven, like mixtape Wayne for sure, never like explicitly political like that. Whereas you have like Currency here is still just trying to make his name by rapping very similarly to Wayne, but without that kind of gravity, I would say.
Right. And like what we're about to get into is when he first like kind of has this first like full like highlight on a Lil Wayne mixtape. In my opinion, it's really incredible. But just comparing those two things, it's like there's clearly these two guys are doing two different things, and Currency doesn't really know exactly what he's supposed to be doing yet. Like, he's just trying to fit into a lot of different or a single lane that's not his lane necessarily.
Yeah, but it's still pleasant, I would say, overall. Like, I mean, there's nothing I dislike on here necessarily. I think he flows really well, but again, he's not owning the beats. Like, I listen to him over Mic Check, and I'd rather hear, like, not just, like, the original Mic Check, which is one of my favorite songs ever, but, like, something like Lupe over Mike Check on Fahrenheit 115 Part 2. Like, that's a good example of somebody taking it and doing like a mixtape flip of it. You hear Ambitions of a Rider, you don't just want to hear like obviously Tupac, but like Wayne over it. And Change Clothes, I don't ever really want to hear Jay-Z Change Clothes. I fucking hate that song. But I don't think he does like owns it either, like necessarily. Like, he has a competent flow, like a good flow over it, but I don't think he really does too much with it either. So, but the selection of beats is good. It's really, I think the biggest improvement over SportsCenter, and this is something that would be like consistent over his projects, is he knows how to edit it down. Like, there are very few Currency projects, I would say, early or late, that are too long.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, at some point, you could even argue they are sometimes too short.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely, yeah. There's some there are
and not
definitely,
not in an Oakland way.
I'll let you skate with that one. Much like Currency, I'll let you skate with that. And Wayne, I'll let you skate with that one.
Hey,
Currency
thanks.
actually probably. I'm wondering about that because Currency was like way ahead of the curve on. I mean, I guess it was the wave with like Lupe at the time a little bit, but like he was a favorite of skate, like the skate scene rappers at that time, if I recall correctly. I certainly
he had some bars in his throughout his 2000s material that was like the skaters like this or whatever. Like, this is for like
I'll point one out. I'll point one out in general when we get to like when he leads Cash Money.
And some of my friends who did skate at the time around like the late 2000s were into him, like, and they weren't necessarily into a whole lot of other rap, but they were into both Currency and to a lesser extent Wiz. So I can vouch for that. I did not skate. If you've seen me, that should not surprise you. I'm not the most coordinated individual. Real quick, just because I feel like a lot of this stuff ends up on Life at 30,000 Feet, but I think this tape was really interesting. Christmas in October. This is, I think, the first actual Currency tape that feels like a Currency tape in terms of both how he's rapping, what he's rapping about, and and the beats he chooses for it. This feels like just super relaxed, chill shit. First time I really remember him actually talking about smoking weed too. Like, it feels like a stoner tape in a good way. The audio quality on it is dog shit. I will say that, though, because I don't know if you can still find this on DatPiff. Again, if DatPiff is still up, I feel like that's a minute-by-minute basis. You can go check the website and it's either down or not. But I got it off SoulSeek and the other day, which will never go down. And now that I said that, it'll probably go down tonight. And it was like 96, like between 96 and 128 quality, and it sounds like it. So you probably want to hear the stuff on Life at 30,000 Feet that's on there, but there are a few tracks on here, I think. He goes over the Mr. Me Too. That's not on anything else, is it? Him going over Mr. Me Too?
I don't think so. Actually, I was just scrolling through. I haven't loaded.
You didn't review this. This is the rare early one you did review.
Yeah. I was just loading up I had my iTunes library loaded up, which I haven't loaded up in forever because I became a Spotify person at some point. But I have 72 releases from Currency, and Christmas in October is not one that is in this thing. So I have no opinion on it.
I'm assuming you haven't heard it either, Caleb, because
No, I've not. I only, when I went back, I listened to some of the material from the early days, but not quite all of it. So no.
Yeah, well, I'm going to recommend. I guess I'm the only one with anything to say about it. I'm going to recommend it just because I feel like there's certain stuff on here. So Fly Talkin' is him going over the Lupe Fiasco I Gotcha beat, which is Neptune's, which I always thought that song kind of got a bad rap just because it's so glossy, but I really enjoy that beat. And I think that he does a really good job. That would be an example of him owning it because he flows like himself on that, which I think that's kind of a difficult beat to go over and not sound like either Lupe or Eminem, because I think Lupe kind of has an Eminem impression on that. Mr. Me Too is a good example of him taking a concept there because it's like he takes the Mr. Me Too concept and kind of flips it about, like both like rappers and about like image in general, which is for just being like a bullshit freestyle over a radio song is pretty impressive. And I think Swangin' does. I don't know if Swangin' shows up anywhere else. Respiration is obviously the Black Star song that shows up as Shooter Zone, at least two other tapes. And all from your bitch and Girl are from the ungoogleable Daryl, and they show up on 30,000 Feet. Shout out to Daryl, man. I don't know what happened to him, but
yeah. Excellent,
not a great
excellent
name
choice.
for us.
Excellent choice for a name.
I was gonna, before we started
I'm
recording,
Daryl.
I was talking with Caleb about how that's up there with Greg Porn in terms of Google optimizing.
Yeah, the SEO market research wasn't around at that time, really. So
Well, by the time Greg Porn came around, it kind of almost was.
Well,
And that's why he put the periods between all the.
Yeah, he went Greg Porn to PORN. So he really trying to make that SEO work for him. One of the ideas I have for a future episode is the Wild World Weed Carriers, and I'm going to get to the Greg Porn solo album. That's up there with like top of the list for that episode. So
he did have one, didn't he?
Yeah, it's called
just a mixtape.
Yeah, it's called American Hunger. Not American. No, it's not American Hunger. It's American something. American Hunger is on MF Grimm. American Nightmare, maybe? I don't know. I have it downloaded because I went through a period where I binge downloaded all of the Roots Weed Carrier solo albums, and I haven't gotten to any of them yet. Dice Raw has like 20 fucking albums.
Oh, of course, because he was maybe really incredible. We just don't know.
Yeah, he has like speaking of MF Grimm, he has like a 3-part like concept series, kind of like MF Grimm. And he had like that's a lie. I heard one of Dice's things. It was Dice Dilla Pregunta, which is, everybody did this, going over a bunch of Dilla stuff. And it wasn't just dope.
Oh.
It's actually pretty good.
Okay. for whatever reason, that sounds
not terrible. It would have been terrible if he just went over donuts, because I got really sick of people going over donuts for a while, because most of those weren't meant to be rapped over. So,
yeah.
Anyway, so Weed Carrier episode coming up eventually. I'm sure the audience can't wait to hear my opinions on the album.
That'll be a solo episode where you just ramble to yourself for 3 hours.
Right.
There was one solo episode I did that never aired. Actually, it's on a hard drive that got destroyed, so it will never air. But I did do a solo episode once.
Fair enough.
That's all I'm going to say about that. I'm going to leave that to everyone's imagination. Weed Carriers, though. Well, the next one is a G Series Volume 1, which is the first in this would be a recurring theme on Currency's careers. He would love to do collaborative tapes. This is the only one he would do, though, in his Young Money era. And it's with Mac Main. And I enjoyed this, really, for what it is. It's very 2006 mixtapey, though. I will say that. Is this another one that only I heard?
This is also my last blind spot. And then until we get into like 2016 or so.
Yeah, I
got
did.
it all.
This was after this is when I was really starting to listen to.
Well, I feel like this is full of stuff, though, that, we can use this as a segue to talk about Where to Cash At, because we all heard that. But just on the tape itself, real quick, it's kind of, the way I put it in my review was that it's basically like a B-side supplemental DVD extra for Dedication 2, because you get Wayne on here a few times, you get like stuff that's elsewhere, like Riding with That K, Pop the Bottles, and Hustler Music, like highlights some other stuff alongside some just like solo shots, some stuff that's not anywhere else. And the two have pretty good chemistry together. They're, I believe, mostly original beats, actually. It's worth hearing. It's nothing great, but it, like I said in the review as well, it's also just kind of like an alternate timeline where Wayne gets Young Money together as a crew of just like good rapper Weed Carriers, as opposed to like people who all have aspirations of being pop stars. Because I think that once he signed Nicki and Drake, it just completely changed the trajectory.
For sure. Can we have the Where to Cash Out conversation?
Yes. That's basically where I wanted to get at, because that was definitely where, I think that was part of the changing the that's the type of song that you make that's a radio rap song that's different from like the Young Money blow up radio rap songs. That's not bedrock. That's like a rap song. Bedrock, right. And that's like a pop song, and it's a perfect fucking rap song. But it was also Currency was on people's radars, like main radars.
And I want to say it was a really cool thing to hear on a mixtape, because it was an original beat instead of rapping over another beat, but it was also sampling a very specific line from Fireman into another song. And then Currency, for whatever, like the whole verse that he has on there was really specific to a like very certain time in my life, which is very strange. But I was hanging out with, I had like some very close Bosnian friends during the World Cup in that year or the year after. I don't know exactly.
It was the World Cup was 06, so yeah.
Was it 06? Okay.
Yeah,
so it was
that Zidane had World Cup?
That might have been the Headbutt World Cup.
I believe that was the Headbutt World Cup, yes.
And so we would just hang out in the basement, because this is high school for me still. We would hang out in the basement of their house, and their parents would be gone all the time for whatever reason. I don't know why. And the only two songs on loop would be this, and then Rick Ross's fucking what was Hustlin'? Hustlin', yeah. It would just be Hustlin' and Where to Cash At on loop over and over while the World Cup is playing. And this is when I really loved to smoke weed. And we would just like go in and out of the basement and listen to those two songs over and over while we watched the World Cup for 24 hours a day. So
and that's
this song got like drilled into my head in a very strange way.
But it's funny how you still like tangibly remember that time. Like that's what music does. It leaves like a long tail of in your memory.
And I can't relate to that version of me at all anymore. Like I honestly don't smoke weed anymore. But at that time, at that moment in junior year, whatever summer between senior year of high school, it was just like all we got to do is listen to this Currency verse. Like it was honestly just loop it back before Lil Wayne even starts. And the Lil Wayne verse on that song is really good too. But for whatever reason, it was just like something about that Currency verse on Where to Cash At. It was just like, who is this guy? And then
I mean, it's actually and kind of not really kind of similar because there were no Bosnians involved, and the World Cup might have been played. Yeah. But it was the first time I'd moved out of my parents' house. I was like college age at this point, and my one roommate at the time, housemate, whatever, was always playing fucking Carter. Like he was a big Lil Wayne fan. He always played the Carter 2 at the time, and he would play this song. And I really liked the song. I didn't know who Currency was, but I really liked his verse on it. And I remember I will associate this with forever. Like sometimes the World Cup was on. I do remember that, but also Burnout. I think it was Burnout Revenge on the PS2 was being constantly played, and the Carter 2 that song was on a lot, and. I'm trying to remember what else. I didn't live in that house very long. I do. But so, yeah, I honestly got into Currency through your reviews, but this was the Currency song that I heard in like before I even knew who Currency was.
Yeah.
And I also have an affinity for songs that are able to sample something contemporary and do it well. And like, especially within their, like sample their own artists, like milieu or themselves. Like in this case, it was Wayne sampling himself. And this does it perfectly. Like, I think that screwed up hook is so perfect. Like, yeah, everything about the song works. It's gimmicky, but it works.
No, totally. And I mean, like, Lil Wayne's verse is probably better than Currency's verse, but there's just like the way that he intones certain things throughout this thing. Like now that I'm looking at the lyrics, I can even just hear it without even like listening to the song. Where he's just like, I like the Amaries, you can have them Amarosas. Like, just there's a certain sort of like cool factor to what Currency was doing here. Where it's just like, who is that guy? Like, what is he up to?
Yeah, that's one thing about Currency that like I think would ingratiate him to new listeners is just he had a mystique about it. He had a charisma. That was it. Charisma. Like he fucking exuded charisma both in the same way that Wayne did, but in a different way, because his was more of a laid back charisma. Wayne had he could be laid back, but he also had an intensity to him. There was nothing intense about Currency. And I feel like his very early stuff, he tried to do intensity and it didn't work for him. And there would be certain stuff throughout his Young Money tenure. And you mentioned one of them when we get to like the 30,000 feet, like he talks about his guns and stuff like that never worked for him. And it didn't feel natural, but the laid back, just talking shit, smoking weed, stealing your bitch, that his 3 favorite topics until he got into sneakers and video games. But those would always be his go-to topics. And it's like, he was so charismatic about it. It's like, yeah, you know what? He did take my girlfriend, but he's so fun to hang out with.
Yeah, and I just feel like if you want to be like really like anthropological about it, it just seems like this is the one verse where it's like he kind of figured out sort of the character that he should play.
Yes. 100%. I would. He nails his persona down.
Yeah, and then he doesn't necessarily get it back right away. There's a lot of like journey from there to where he's eventually come to, but this is like the baseline for sure.
And a good way to put it, anthropologically. And it's just a good ass pop rap song in general. Like every aspect of it works. It's catchy. You hear it a bunch of times and not get sick of it. The hook works perfectly. I love the song. And this is the first mixtape it shows up on. Well, no, it's not. But it's the first Currency mixtape.
Yeah, it showed up on like 75 mixtapes because
I was going to say
at that time the DJs were just like, "Oh, this is my original mix of this thing," and then now it's just the same shit.
I threw a spider scratch on it. I lived on my mix.
Yeah. That was the tiring thing about Dat Piff and why it lasted for so long, because they had so many different DJs on there.
Holiday season!
And why I gravitated to live mixtapes, because they were a little more curatorial about everything.
Yeah, Dat Piff especially.
R.I.P. live mixtapes, by the way. They're actually gone, which is sad.
Yeah. I believe Mixtape Monkey is also went to the sky as well.
Oh my god. No.
Pour one out for all of the mixtape sites. Your favorite mixtape site, because it's probably gone. I'm trying to think if there was one download site that somebody put in the server the other day that's still active, like some SendSpace era download site, like You Send It era. I'm trying to remember what it was. It's going to bother me. But this is going to be a lot of 2000s internet nostalgia in this. I feel like right now there are like some certain listeners who are like in grade when this came out, like, what the fuck are these boomers talking about?
Yeah.
Like,
no, because we're about to get into some real specific issues.
Yeah, this is a niche podcast, and we're
distribution.
Like in the niche of a niche right now.
Yeah.
Anyway, Life at 30,000 Feet. This is a real bargain bin DVD ass looking album mixtape cover right here.
I mean, look at that Photoshop. Like, look.
Yeah. I mean, you got the Photoshop, you got the impact font, he's taking it back to No Limit by doing you get the bargain for your buck by listing all the features on the cover.
Yep. And once you get past Remy Ma, it's like, okay, like what?
Shout out to Dizzy, Top Guns, Joey Queens, Young A, Fifth Ward Weeby. Roddy makes his first appearance here, which is relevant, but
he didn't even get a chance to get listed on the
cover. Yeah. This is where Daryl washes up, the Daryl tracks. Daryl, no ROM link for you. This is a really good tape, though. As Nodima points out in his review, though, it begins... Okay, so he goes over a great-ass beat. He goes over... That is totally not suited to him, though. He goes over the Dipset Get 'Em Daddy beat, and it's not... That's where I think maybe the last time he really talks about his tons of guns like he's Guru. Except not in an ironic way, like Guru did. But then it really should start with Dead Presidentials.
Yeah, that's an amazing song. I feel like this tape
more in his lane.
This tape has a lot of like early like mixtape Currency highlights on it. I do think it's a little long. I mean, that's not really a hot take.
Yeah, this is actually completely goes counter to my previous point because it's nearly 80 minutes, which is this and the next one are very much like this is a period where he's kind of fitting to the mixtape of the time formula of just filling up the CDR.
Mm. And also, like, though, to your point, like, why I was so impressed with Dead Presidentials and am still today is, like, that was him figuring out in the same way that Where to Catch At, he, like, found his voice, then he, like, finds his sound through, like, someone else's beat, obviously, but then, like, doesn't really capture it a lot through the rest of it. Like, because of the Cash Money thing, he's got to like constantly like dip in and out of like the jazz vibe. That obviously makes a lot of sense for him.
Right. I guess that's the big issue with the tape is that it does feel like it's two tapes kind of like at odds with each other. Is that you have the laid back jazzier stuff versus the more mainstream. What would be called trap then, because we call everything mainstream trap these days, young money, Cash Money sound. So, but there's no, I would say that there's generally no bad songs on here. There's just like I would take the classic beat stuff over the Cash Money stuff I think there's two tapes here, basically. There's a borderline classic 40-minute tape with him going over really interesting, cherry-picked classic stuff. And there's a pretty good contemporary Cash Money tape.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, like, this is the point where you kind of just, like, if you're into the Currency thing, I think you wouldn't start here, but you could go back here and you would be totally satisfied.
Yeah.
And I'm honestly even just curious, just reading my own, right? He rapped about Terminator 2 on I Done It. Like, I want to know, I wish I had gone back and listened to that so I could know what that is. Or if that was even a thing that he actually did. I imagine he did. If I said he did it, he must have done it. but who knows? But in any case, yeah, like this just seems like it wouldn't be a starting point, but it'd be like a return point where you would feel totally satisfied and be like, here's the beginning of this guy.
Well, looking at your review, you say the whole recurring theme of using an NBA player's girlfriend to finance his own desires, which that's funny because he has a really recent verse where he talks about how ball players get it worse by by both scrutiny from the media and by being played by women, which was a weird tangent that Vic Spencer went off on a recent song about women doing that to ball players, which I have very little sympathy for pro athletes and their female choices. But I also think it goes kind of back to a reference on Big E's I Got a Story to Tell, which was always supposed to be like a true story about an athlete, which I think was later revealed by admission to be John Starks from the Knicks.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. And little small aside to that is that Currency has always been kind of tied to the New Orleans basketball team. So when they were the New Orleans Hornets, he was around for a while and then they disappeared. And then when they came back, like him and his manager and like everybody that he hangs out with, they're always around that basketball team. So he's like always dropping little hints about drama, which when I was in college we're getting into, I guess really not, but almost when I was in college, like I was really fascinated by all that. I was like, damn, Chris Paul, David West, what is going on?
Well, it was there because I remember really liking those Hornets teams when I was young, because around that time was when I first started getting into the NBA, and I loved watching Chris Paul because I saw him a little bit at Wake Forest, but that was still like just before I started caring about basketball. But I loved like the Chris Paul, David West. Like they were really young, but they went in the playoffs that one time. I think they lost like the Spurs or something. But I used to really like those Hornets teams. I was sad when they went away, but then they had the Pelicans rebrand, so it worked out. And then we have the Charlotte Hornets back. So you think Currency knows anything about the Charlotte Hornets, or he just sticks around the Pelicans now?
I really doubt he cares. I actually before this podcast started, I actually reached out to his manager Musa and was just like, "Hey, maybe," because I had been in New Orleans twice in the past like year and a half, and I was like, "Hey, maybe I skipped the Currency burger joint and the car garage. What if I just come down for 3 weeks and I don't want to hang out with Currency? I just want to hang out, or 3 days, not 3 weeks, and I just hang out with whoever's running the car garage." And I didn't hear back from him. But it did just really remind me. I just did this deep dive, and I was like, "Damn, Currency is one of the guys of this current era that is from New Orleans and really is still like tied down to New Orleans, and is like still like really stuck in New Orleans." And like,
I knew about the garage. I did not know about the burger.
Yeah, he's there's like 3 or 4 of them.
Now, if I ever get out to New Orleans, I'm gonna have to hit up the burger joint for sure.
It's a cool place to be.
Yeah. I mean, New Orleans is on my, when I intend to go all the way west, that's definitely on my list. So,
and I don't want to say I was flexing. I was literally just like, oh my God, impulsively, let me reach out to this guy. I bet he won't respond. Didn't respond. So that was it.
It was worth a shot. It was worth
yeah, for sure.
I mean, you got to shoot your shot there. Much
for sure.
As with all of these athletes' girlfriends, and apparently he has
exactly. I was trying to channel my inner Currency in that moment.
Well, he's always trying to inspire people through his raps. And
I was like, if you're gonna fuck somebody else's girl, can I hang out with your manager?
Well, he definitely shot his shot when he went away from Young Money, though, because that was his last tape, I believe, on Young Money, and then he declared his independence. Much like Bill Pullman, he declared his independence. Sorry, with Independence Day, the mixtape.
Now you have to do the whole speech.
DVD.
You have to do the whole speech.
It's gonna take like 10 minutes.
I will not disgrace one of the pages doing that, George. But this is another DVD, bargain bin DVD ass cover. But I find it very charming. We do have so much lens flare going on here. This is where I would start with Currency. I would say it's not his best tape. I mean, like this ain't no mixtape or pilot talk is probably really where you should start. But if you're going to start with mixtape Currency, I think this is probably where you should start, because this is like, he's clearly telling you this is where he's defining himself as an artist. It's long. It's not perfect by any means, but I feel like this is where he's planting his flag. This is where he started that run where it was like every month a mixtape, which I think kind of was a bit ahead of its curve in terms of like the saturating content era. And yeah, I don't think I've ever listened to this in full more than once, though, because it is long. Sure.
I mean, on a personal note, when I look back on it, if I would have been like prescient at the time, this was one of the things that would have made me really exhausted to write about rap music all the time. So I'm so like happy that you guys still do it. But also Soul Man, the first track on the album, is maybe to me one of like the 10 tracks I would give to anybody that wants to know what Currency is about. Like, that song is crazy. And like you guys were saying earlier, that's where he says, but hipsters and skateboarders digging it. And you kind of like get a vision of like he's aiming for a different sort of crowd than a lot of other rappers are.
Yeah, I heard this for the first time the other day, and hearing that line, I like actually laughed like listening to it, because the way he said it was like so goofy also.
Yeah, and they single it out so much that they just like, it seems like it's almost like filed out of the rest of the song in some way.
Yeah, I feel like it's lampshaded. I don't know if they dropped the beat out or whatever, because it's like obviously an old Tribe beat, but like I feel like the song lampshades that line, or the way he flows it is like he's definitely trying to get you to focus on that.
Yeah, but even still, it just sounds like 1992 hip hop. Like, it doesn't sound like a New Orleans song, which is kind of strange because he mostly like is anchored by New Orleans for the rest of his career. And in the start of the song, he's making a lot of New Orleans references. But in general, like just the way the rhymes go together and the way that it's all constructed, it just feels like very like aloof and like very like and I don't want to say Jungle Brothers because they're all problematic, but it's it's very like easygoing, like early 90s New York rap.
Well, up to, I mean, this is all probably outside of your purview, at least now, because you haven't listened to more recent stuff, but the 2009 tape with Wiz and his most recent release with Jermaine Dupri, of all fucking people, he's got a lot of throwback flavor to his stuff, like in terms of beats he would choose, flows and whatever. He really goes back with it. And like if you think about like some of the stuff he chooses in terms of beats, like Prince Paul, RZA, Tribe, like a lot of Tribe, like he definitely favors a lot of early 90s in his selection. So that's not surprising. Like I feel like a lot of the appeal of Currency is that like goofy hangout rap. Like just you want to chill with this guy, you want to smoke with this guy, you want to just like, it's just fun rap, like, but not like corny. Like,
and I mean, that was it for me too. When I was like starting to write about rap seriously for like Pop Matters or even just like casually for radio music or whatever, for whatever reason, Currency was always this anchor where I could just come back to, and it would be like, I can get almost every style of rap that I want to out of these like 22, 27 songs. And I can kind of just like sit in it for a second. And it's not always the best. Sometimes it is really good. And sometimes it's kind of like mid-grade, but he was always like this weird anchor for me. Like that's kind of why, just as we continue to get into it, this is why I continue to write about this dude for so long. because I was just so fascinated by like how he was very much anchored in the New Orleans thing, but then also like very much able to be like, I really liked this old jazz hip hop. I really want to like hang out in this new, like kind of trappy, but not really hip hop.
Well, I feel like what he brings together is like he has the jazz influence, but it's like the early '90s type jazz influence, like Tribe, Prince Paul, like De La, etc. But he also has like that blog rap influence of like contemporary of the time, but also the New Orleans influence, like the No Limit, Cash Money, etc., etc. Like he just like a polyglot, all that shit. And he brings it together in just such a fun way. And for the most part, his projects are able to do that in a way that doesn't call attention to the fact that he's bringing all of these things together. Like it's not a big show of it. It's effortless. It's that effortless charisma. And what's best about Currency, I think, is that, again, the whole package deal, and he finds the collaborators that make it work. Not just the rappers he works with, but especially the producers, especially like, I mean, that's what was so exciting about, and we're getting to this period soon, the Damon Dash period, and that's why I was so disappointed that it fell apart, was it really felt like he was on to something there. Like, who he was working with, like Pilot Talk, like he had Crit around, he had Dizza around, he had like, I was even excited about fucking Mackenzie Eddy for a while too. I was like, this chick's on to something. In retrospect, I'm just going to be safe for the Weed Carrier episode, because I've listened to all the Mackenzie Eddy solo stuff too, which I don't think many people on earth can say. So yeah, you're going to have a podcast that talks about both Greg Bourne and Mackenzie Eddy solo albums. I can just see the metrics shooting up on that. He just like tied it all together in such a compelling way that did not call attention to itself.
Right. And I could definitely not say that I listen to the Kenzie Eddy stuff.
No,
we do.
You can, and I'm not going to recommend that you do.
No, just for a rhyme, the Fly Society thing was Terry Kennedy, who was a skater, was part of that initially, and that was kind of why that skateboard thing all like connected together. And then eventually they fell out.
Well, just speaking of a good like rhyme in terms of an actual rap on here, though, it's from your review, though. From
I'm not the best rapper. I just write.
Yeah, that was actually a bar there. But from Passport Sports.
Yeah, it was from like an outtake from Dave on FX.
Don't mention that show on this show.
Oh shit! Oh no. I've never watched it. I don't know. I've never watched it. I don't know.
The White Atlanta?
We do not cotton to the White Atlanta on this show.
I've never watched it or heard Lil Dicky, so never mind. Erase it from the record.
Good. Yeah. Wyatt will edit that one out. There's going to be like a long blank space.
Okay. Yeah. I have no idea. That was just a reference I made.
On Passport Sports, just like I didn't listen to this fresh for the show, so I'm just like kind of reading from your review here. But and try to Xerox copy the flow, but they can't because the ink cartridge is low. That's just like a little throwaway punchline, but like there's so much to that punchline right there. Like they try to copy like Xerox their ink cartridge. Who doesn't know about a low ink cartridge? That's such a cliche, but it's such a clever line. You know, like he would just throw away lines like that over and over, and that's what made him so refreshing to listen to.
Yeah,
and the other thing you said about
that's been consistent for throughout all of his work. Sorry, Pat, I know I just cut you off there, but no, you could tell.
No, I'm going to stop cutting you off. Go ahead.
I was more of just making the point of that is something that to me has always like not only stood out about Currency, but has helped draw me back to the music, where there isn't necessarily like an overt focus on, rhyming and, rhyme patterns and, making sure that it's in your face what he's saying, bars son type rap from him, but it has the ability to be very laid back and like offhanded, but also he's really rapping, so yeah.
And the other thing that I thought was really compelling about this tape, which you pointed out in your review, is that he's definitely making it clear that he does not fuck with Lil Wayne on this tape.
Yeah, that was a really interesting thing. I was just like, obviously, no, I was just going to say I can't think of another person that's left a label. And then I was like, oh, obviously there's so many examples. But he did it in a really subtle and like soft way, I feel like. Said it explicitly, but softly, and then got over it, and then was done. And then just went about the rest of his year putting out like another 100 songs.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you can kind of cherry pick a few lines here and there over the course of the year that where he's like taking little bit of shots, maybe. But yeah, this is the one where it's like every track has like maybe one or two digs, flows maybe like a little bit of a reference point. But he was definitely getting something off his chest here. But he was doing it in a subtle way. Like it's sort of like it's like you're being classy but savage, I would say, about how
and this was the same time too where like Pusha T, like every other verse was kind of like burying Lil Wayne. So
oh, you mean like
what
the past 15 years?
Yeah. But this is the beginning of it. This is the beginning of it. So like whatever Currency would have to say it was like a tiny little like toy shovel compared to like the bulldozer that Pusha T was bringing.
Yeah, because it started with Mr. Me Too, right?
Yeah.
So, which is so funny that do you guys know the meme format where it's like a bunch of dominoes and it's like one guy at the bottom of the dominoes and it'll be like an event and then later on it's the biggest domino and like that falls years later. I'm not doing a good job of describing it, but basically
I'm pretty sure I know.
I've seen it's something where it comes up on social media a lot, but I definitely saw one that was like Pusha T dissing Lil Wayne over like Bape in 2006, and then it was like Drake's career hitting like a huge like story of Adidon coming out, like it was the biggest domino.
Yeah,
it's just like,
or Drake being shamed by Rap Verse into being a good father.
Being a good father, yeah.
Has there ever been a more underwhelming response than that one Lil Wayne song where he finally responds to Pusha, where it's just like, that's all? That's it? Where it's like, fuck Pusha T and anyone that love him. His head up his ass, I'ma have to headbutt him. Like, you're Lil Wayne. Like, his head up his ass, I'ma have to headbutt
and that
him.
that was during a time when rap music fans like in the mainstream still really like cared about how beef was handled.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That was just, I just remember being like, all right.
I don't know. I would say as somebody that has probably listened to Lil Wayne more than any other artist ever, that sounds right up his alley. That sounds exactly appropriate.
I mean, that's yeah, it does. Like that type of.
That sounds exactly how he'd respond.
Especially for where he was at, but like it just felt like if that's all you're gonna do, don't do it. Like in terms of that beef, like
sure.
I don't know. It was a wet fart, but I mean that's the type of punchline he would make. Absolutely. I don't.
Maybe that's the beginning of the end of beefs. Because what's the most significant beef before or since? Not really much.
Oh,
other
obviously,
than
Game versus Eminem, the beef that changed rap.
Sure. Yeah.
No, but it's seriously like the Pusha T Drake was like the last line of rap beef like ever. I feel like now it's just like if artists don't fuck with each other, they'll just
that was a weird moment. It was like very exciting and it didn't hurt anyone.
You could argue it helped people. It made Drake a better father.
Yeah. It really just made Drake go away for like a little bit. That's what it did. It's like it just he went dark.
I guess actually, as checked out as I am, I still feel like I heard Drake a lot, and then ever since Added On, I don't necessarily. I feel like I'm less aware of Drake than I used to be. So maybe that's true. He got dreads too.
I wish I had your blissful ignorance.
But it is also that speaks to it. I know we're getting off the Currency reservation, but that does speak to an interesting part of the last couple years, especially in music and culture in general, where it is just harder to be aware of very popular music. Rap or otherwise.
Don't send me on that rant. We'll just do an hour on that. Let's go back to Currency.
You want to be aware of Drake. The most recent Drake news I'm aware of, thanks to the fashion channel in our Discord, is the man was most recently photographed on.
Oh yes,
with a jacket that has a stitching on it that says "Hard feelings, harder dick."
It's true. That is a real picture.
So if you want to be aware of Drake, there you go. I just made you aware of Drake.
He's in his corny dad phase.
Actually, no. I think he's in his cool guy phase. That sounds pretty fucking tight. I'm into it.
All right, well, I'm sure you can buy one. But, all right. Higher than 30.
Send me the link. It's $35,000. I'll buy it.
Yeah, pretty much.
Higher than 30,000 feet. Finally, Currency's making cool mixtape covers, though. Like, I actually like this cover a lot. I mean, it appears to be just taken from an old movie.
I don't think that he made it. I mean,
no, that's what I'm saying. He just stole it.
I think he just took it.
Literally,
just good. The font's good. The font's good.
He literally God Fahimed this and just took it off Google image search.
Yeah.
I have not listened to this one, actually. This is one I did not get to, so I will defer to the rest of the room on this.
I think it's kind of like a reversion to form, essentially. Like it doesn't impress the same way that Independence Day did. It's kind of going back to rapping over a lot of pretty much entirely other people's beats, though it's not like sad. I don't know. It's like, because this is the same era where like Jadakiss and Fabulous and a whole ton of people are Royce to 5'9". They're all rapping over everybody's beats.
Right.
And he does kind of make them all sound more casual and chill, which is cool. I don't know that's like the most necessary like listen. Because the production is all like you've heard it. So if you've heard like 5 other rappers rap over them, why
I do
hear
like
this one?
Just looking at your review, just looking at the production list, there is a lot of there is a ski on here, which I'm wondering what ski beat he picked. And also there's several Just Blaze beats, which is interesting to me because I think that's a nice
yeah. So that would be foreshadowing. He just rapped over Feeling It from Reasonable Doubt.
Oh, duh, Feeling It 2008. Oh, duh, Feeling It 2008.
Yeah.
That should have been very obvious. And yeah, so that's a nice foreshadowing. And yeah, Just Blaze just seems like a nice fit for him because of just general aesthetic. But yeah, I haven't heard it. I can't really speak to it, but it does seem like he's kind of gone back to the old template as opposed to what he was.
Yeah, and then it's been so long. I don't know who was credited as Fly Society. I'm pretty damn sure it's not Trademark or Roddy. I don't know who they are, so I can't speak to those tracks, but I definitely rated them poorly. So
yeah, you did not have much to say. Period.
So
about
I don't think it's those two guys because I do like those guys a lot.
Caleb, didn't hear it, I assume.
I did not hear it. No. We are still trickling through. There's a couple in here that I have not heard. I have heard some of these from the mid and late 2000s, but I did not hear that one.
I don't know. I think we're actually in a period. We have one that none of us heard was "Welcome to the Winner's Circle." Amazingly. Well, wait. You said that. You don't have this catalog in RYM, but Nodima.
I did listen to it. I didn't rate it. Just because this was like kind of an early version of that Onslaught that every artist does
like
now.
A mixtape a month series,
and it was just like I don't have any. I know he rapped over, if I remember correctly, he rapped over a lot of
styled. Yes, who shot you 100%?
Yeah. No, he rapped over a lot of Bad Boy beats on this one, and then had his friends on for a bunch of. But yeah, it was just something to fill time.
I'm pro.
If I remember correctly.
This cover art. I'm pro. This is that Danica Patrick in the background?
Is that Danica?
I think that's Danica Patrick.
He does a sequel to this, which I have heard, which is very good, and it's even funnier. But
yeah. I have no thoughts.
I have no real. Froze shows up as a title much later in his catalog. Fear and Loathing in New Orleans. Very low effort cover art. Very low effort.
Low effort cover art. Pretty big effort mixtape, I would say.
I know. This has one of my very favorite Currency songs on it, Title Track. I absolutely love Title Track. That has a verse that he's super honest about his early approach on, where he talks about how his early stuff was a bunch of bullshit and lies about shooting people in pies, but then he had to find himself. I love that song. I think that's some of his best writing, some of his best delivery. Everything on here is very good, though. It's just like, in general, just peak era, like from this era. I mean, peak effort from this era in terms of just being chill over the exact type of production you want to hear him over. Just a fun listen.
Yeah. I did see that you really highlighted title track. I did not apparently like it that much. I don't know why.
Apparently, yeah. And also, you said it's a Kanye beat, which I don't know where our favorite Nazi fucking put that.
I was really trying to dig back in those days, but I don't know. It's been a long time since I listened to it. That might have been from like one of his early mixtapes, because this was the time when they were really digging for it. Do you remember what Stealth Technology was over? Because I really did love that song, and I still do. Actually, was that mainstream that you rapped over?
I'm pretty sure that was the George Clinton one. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. That makes sense.
Wait, which song was it?
Stealth Technology.
That's the George Clinton Outkast song. Yeah.
Oh no, that's not mainstream. That's
Oh, that was Synthesizer.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh,
yeah.
Well,
the George Clinton one from Aquemini. Yeah.
Damn. Now I'm even more curious. I feel like Currency would make so much sense over mainstream, but over Synthesizer, I wonder. This is the thing.
I did not revisit one.
Yeah.
Well, I only know because I listened to it like yesterday for it. So I
really should have re-listened to this one. Skybars, I'm guessing, is Touch the Sky, because you have John Bryan and Kanye.
I'm just curious because this is apparently like
you shit on Young Roddy.
Unpublished.
That's funny.
Unpublished. It's not available to the public. So I'm just curious what the Stealth Technology. Whatever. It's for another time.
Yeah,
anyway,
I liked him over Intergalactic better than you, actually. At the time, I mean, I think him going over just like stuff that's inappropriate. I feel like he got better at that over time. Like, I think it was something that he was awkward with at first when he hadn't found his style. But I mean, it's still awkward. It's not something I seek out. But I think as a novelty on a tape like this, I mean, I still have the tape at a 7, and I probably stand by that 7. But generally, if you have a tape where he's mostly going over what he's comfortable over, if you have a goof like him doing, like him going over Intergalactic, and Intergalactic's fresh in my mind because at my job, they sometimes play music to motivate people, and Intergalactic's currently on the playlist, and I really actually love that song. I didn't realize how much I love that song. It's just like a fun song.
No, I mean, if you, I mean, I won't go back. Well, I guess I could. Yeah, I had it as 7.15, so we're at the same thing. Who cares what a 7.15 is to me? But yeah, I had.
No, these numbers are very important. We have to argue
exactly. I was just trying to explain this to somebody 2 hours ago.
Well, the way I always wanted to say is like the numbers thing is more of just like I just wanted to explain how the tracks stack up against each other. Like I don't. Yeah, that's mainly why I do it. Like I never had a grand unified theory like you did at some point. I know
because then eventually you have to
like something you're just kind of like on.
Yeah, because then eventually you have to explain why there's no single LP album in your top 150, and you're like, oh shit, I just haven't written about LP since 2009, so I don't know. I actually don't have an answer for you.
Ever. Yeah.
I just got more excited about Future in 2015.
Hey, you know,
and it's weird. Yeah,
a good thing to get excited about. Yeah,
I don't want to go too far into it, but I still, this is the one argument I still get into is that I have Future way too high on all my lists.
Not too high for me personally. So
that's also neither.
But I think that he's outstanding when he's outstanding, and I don't think he'd ever overstate his influence. So.
Yeah, I'm definitely.
But also,
this is a pro Future podcast. You're not going to hear
100%. We've thought about doing an episode for like 5 years on. It just hasn't. It never happened. But
we'll eventually materialize. Like, yeah, there will eventually be a Future episode.
Well, invite me back. Anyway, let's go on.
Yeah, we'll move on. This is a good tape. It's not the tape. We didn't really talk about it very much, but title track's one of my favorites. Good selection of old beats. Good flow over stuff. I have not listened. I should have probably re-listened to this one to talk about it and more, knowledgeably. But yeah, I feel like it's probably the jazziest of the ones he would put out during this period, from what I remember, for the most part, like in terms of what he picks.
It definitely like implies where he's going to go when he gets to This Is No Mixtape. Unfortunately, there's a little bit of a dark period right before then.
Yeah, like again, like looking at what he picks, there's the Nesby Phipps production, like the Alf production, etc. So yeah, super Tecmo Bowl. Shout out to Boldy James. Did a
Yes.
better cover.
Yeah, and a better album.
And a better album. This is not one of his better efforts. I didn't rate it. I listened to it a while ago. It's not. I would say it's probably my. This is when he starts, if I recall, rehashing stuff. Maybe.
It's when he begins to get a little repetitive before he figures out how to get a little more like creative about the things he's repetitive about.
Good way to put it. Yeah.
And they're very short songs. Like they're not like there's nothing consequential about it. It was literally I feel like it was literally just like, hey, do you remember me?
Yeah, I haven't put one of these out a month, so
because this was a time when everybody was putting stuff out all the time. I want to do an aside. Do either of you remember when Gorilla Zoe put out a mixtape every day for February in like 2009 or 2010? I feel like that was the year.
I remember it only because they came up on Smoking Section until they said they weren't going to do them until Smoking Section wasn't going to post about it anymore.
Yeah.
I think like Gotti said, like, look, you know he's going to do this. You know where to find it. Just go find that Biff, essentially.
So to me, this was the era of like we haven't really figured out how to just like use all our studio sessions in the most like productive way. In the way that like the Spotify era has kind of made like DaBaby and everybody like figure that kind of shit out. This was just like
we have more DaBaby in our lives, by the way.
Oh yeah, for sure. But this was just like flood the market because I'm out of cash money. Remember me, and to me that's what Super Tecmo Bowl is.
If there's one thing I want to hear on here, and I can't believe I'm saying this, it's him over a milli, because I think I've heard every single goddamn rapper of all time over a milli, and I don't over a milli. I don't even like that beat. I don't like most people over a milli, but I don't remember him over that.
Oh, so, no. You don't like a milli?
Not really. Not
all
really.
right.
Was it because of like the actual song, or just you heard it was ad nauseum?
I burn out on it because I heard every single goddamn rapper over.
Because it's funny
I don't dislike. Okay, I find the beat itself to be kind of a novelty, irritating gimmick that I think Wayne rapped incredibly well over.
Did you ever drive a Volkswagen Beetle down a highway with a boosted bass system?
I would probably never be able to drive a fucking Volt. I don't like. I have a.
But did you?
Volkswagen. There's a no. Short answer, no.
You missed out. You missed out. It was good.
I do remember.
I like Beatles from a distance, though. I don't like riding in them. Are we talking old school Beatles or the revival?
No, the new one with a boosted bass system.
I didn't know they had a boosted bass system.
Specifically, a boosted bass system. Yeah, you could get it.
Now you're kind of making me envious, and I really kind of want this experience.
I didn't do that, but my mom did, and I borrowed a car once, and it was magical. It was nice to listen to a milli in that car.
I could see a milli working really well with. I'm looking right now. I have a refurbished old one of those old boomboxes, Sony boomboxes that had the super bass on them or whatever, like the mega bass.
Yeah.
Making me think of as the mega bass on that. Fast Times at Ridgemont Fly, another incredibly low effort mixtape cover. Incredibly low effort. And rather low effort mixtape, but not terrible. Just another one he put out because he had to put one out.
Yeah.
Modern Day Hippie's fun. It's got a really dated beat. Smoke and make music. I'm a modern day hippie. I thought that song was fun. I listened to that a lot when I smoked way too much weed and didn't do much. I guess like a modern day hippie. This is one of the more have my friends around mixtapes. You got Trademark on 2. You got Roddy and Street Wiz. You got his cousin, who I guess wasn't locked up at this point. Yeah, it's all right. I feel like this one has some of the more of its time beats, if I recall correctly, like the glossy dubstep-y, quote-unquote, type beats, even though this predates dubstep, but like EDM, I suppose. Definitely Modern Day Hippie was like that, because I listened to it. Like, just really heavy synthy. Kind of this, so not necessarily the stuff he was most comfortable over, but...
Yeah, apparently I gave it a 3 out of 5 for whatever reason, but I didn't write about it or
did not see fit to
random.
Optimal reviewed this in 2016 or rated this.
I listened to it. This was definitely I listened to it definitely when I was like getting into currency mixtapes. So I think prior to that point, I had only heard like the big, Pilot Talk and obviously and some of the other albums like the Canal Street and things of that nature around that time. So what it probably was is I had probably seen you like write or review something about or rate currency, and then I went back and listened to some currency because I didn't around this time in hip hop, like let's say the early 2010s. I know we're not there yet, but in the early 2010s, I was really just like a mainstream rap listener. So it took until like 2014 or so for me to go back and listen to a lot of like blog era stuff that I didn't even get to, like 2014, 15, and so on. So that's probably what it was. I don't remember much about it, but that's probably why it was. I read it so long ago.
What's interesting to me about this, just looking at the track list, is he has two In and Out tracks, a Brett Favre track, and Jet Music spelled with a Z. Little Wayne on this, I would say, influence just a little bit, just in the construction of the album.
Yeah, this was Currency's Carter 1.
Right.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, noted Brett Favre fan, Lil Wayne. I can't imagine Brett Favre has aged particularly well.
No. Any content involving Brett Favre has aged quite poorly, I think, in the last.
And we closed the curtain on, much like Brett Favre closed the curtain on being a charitable individual, Currency closed the curtain on his mixtape series with FIN, Finn, which this was a pretty fun tape. You didn't review this one either, but this one, I listened to this a few times. This has Lysol Revisited, which is spelled wrong on the RYM track list, which will never not bother me. I could fix it, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to complain about it on air.
No, that's really charming. I like it. I'm looking at it now. That's great.
It might also be misspelled on the actual tape too. Which
I think it is. This is when I was like heavy and yeah, I'm a contributor.
You might have actually added this. Yeah, you're on the.
That's probably how it was on.
I can see that because a lot of those DAT piffs are they have a lot of misspellings on them. So yeah, this is where Shooter Zone shows up again, which I think he actually did a retake on this because it's longer. So I think he did a retake over Respiration. Lysol Revisited is him, over Lucifer, which. He talks about how much he loves the beat, which is really fun. Which it's a great beat, like how do you not love the beat? This is probably my favorite of the mixtape series overall. I think it's a good way to go out on it.
Really? For me, it's still Independence Day. And
you don't consider Independence Day part of the series. I meant post Independence Day.
Okay, fine. I'm just so attached to Soul Man. But then, yeah, if you're gonna.
I meant like everything
that. Yeah, you're probably right. I mean, for whatever reason, again, I gave 3.5 to Fear and Loathing, but I can't remember why. That was so long ago.
Yeah, this has some rehash.
You might be right.
Title track shows up again, way late. Spit Vicious shows up again. I think I like this maybe because it rehashes a bunch of better tracks from other tapes. So yeah, that's the issue. I think is that he was running out of material. And he does have some interludes on here, if I recall, where he's kind of talking to you about how this is the end and the mixtape's coming, that's also a very 2008 sort of like, this is content that's providing, more content coming. Like
I'm done wasting your time. Here's time for like the actual shit.
This is a mixtape, apparently, that I did not listen to. I downloaded it, but I did not listen to it. It has it's clearly promo for this is not a mixtape.
I don't even think that's real, honestly. I think that's like a DJ thing.
Yeah, very well might be.
It doesn't.
I think whoever the DJ is did a nice job with the fake Grand Theft Auto cover and stuff, and the Fly Society thing and everything. But yeah, it's all borrowed material. We're just going to skip past that. Kicks, video games, movies, and chicks. This cover art's dog.
I also don't think we need to talk about it. I think there might be one song on this I liked, but I don't think we need to talk about it at all.
We don't. The Marley and Me remix. I don't know if that shows up anywhere else. That's a really good song. I really like the Marley and Me remix. Beyond that, there's several songs on here that don't even have currency on them. Yeah, fuck it. Hell Fly. Probably something to say about How Fly.
There's probably a lot to say about How Fly.
Yeah, I would say that How Fly is pretty significant. So one
Even
thing
though
I
I don't think it's that good.
Okay,
but it's cool.
It isn't, but it's. We could probably stop there. Actually, it's not that good, but it's cool.
It's also just like obviously important, just in terms of.
No,
it's very
obviously important.
First thing I wanted to say is that he doesn't have any Wiz features before this, so it's weird to me that like he went from having no Wiz association to do a whole collaboration with Wiz.
Well, interesting to think about this period for Wiz Khalifa too, because he was not that special either. Like he was like a kind of he did the gangster rap thing from Pittsburgh and it didn't really work out, and then he kind of was starting to pivot towards the stoner thing, and it's really interesting that like this is kind of like a springboard that was maybe provided by Currency, where then he became like this incredibly infamous rapper.
Because Kush and OJ came out the next year, right? Or was that this year?
No, Kush and OJ was 2 years later. Kush and OJ
2 years
was
later.
2011.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, this is first of all, I work with a lot of people from Pittsburgh, and swear to God, you say something about Wiz Khalifa.
Oh, I'm sure Black and Yellow. Had that already come out?
No, Black and Yellow is
Okay.
Black and Yellow is the next year, I believe. If you say something bad about Wiz Khalifa in front of somebody from Pittsburgh, you spit on a fucking icon of the Virgin Mary in front of a Catholic, man. Like, these people take this guy seriously.
It is funny because I went to school with a bunch of people from Pittsburgh, and they also have like this fondness for Wiz. Now, I don't think it was like quite in the unassailable territory, but you're talking about, but they do have like a very they hold him up on this like pedestal compared to
real fondness for him. And I feel like if you came up in this era, like that he young and on his grind, whatever. But yeah, you're very right about the pivot though, because he like definitely was trying to do a certain thing that didn't necessarily take off, no pun intended. And then he hooked up with Currency and kind of more or less did a Drake. He swagged Dracula at his persona, did a little bit different with it.
Yeah.
Subsumed his essence, and then all of a sudden, that took off for him, whereas Currency was okay kind of staying in his lane, as it were. The most interesting thing about this tape is that there's a massive, absolutely massive gulf in talent between the two of these rappers. In that you will have a Currency verse that is good and a Wiz verse that is terrible.
Right. But then sometimes you'll have a Wiz chorus that is fun, and then a Wiz verse that is terrible right after it.
Right. I'm really struggling to think of Wiz verses that are good on this. I think maybe around the end, because I listened to Over the Building a lot at the time, and I think Over the Building is pretty good. I think how the title track might be tolerable on Wiz's end, because I remember listening to the title track, Over the Building, and Rolling Up a lot. Rolling Up is the two over the high tech beat from Letter to the King off of Games LAX, and I absolutely love the way that song starts. By the way, that's like the two, like they creep up on the beat, kind of like that. Or Currency creeps up on the beat, because Currency actually knows how to rap over a beat, which Wiz shows very little aptitude for on this. Wiz's hooks on this are good. I don't want to say Wiz adds nothing to this. His hooks on this are generally pretty good. His rapping on this is tolerable to poor to unlistenable.
Yeah, I mean, I this is so long ago that I don't have a memory of it. I wish I had listened to this a little more recently.
This is from memory for me too, but
but just like scanning over what I rated and wrote about it, it just seems like it was Wiz was there to make this fun, and then they obviously found like a very palatable like off-site career with like selling grinders and like all kinds of baggies and shit off of this album. But I remember listening to this album a lot at the time and then not liking it despite how much I listened to it. Or
this
not,
album is the friend
not liking it, but just being underwhelmed.
This album is the friend that always smokes you up, that you don't really like hanging out with, but he always has free weed.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
It's the guy with the dad whose house is always open. You can hang out in the attic if you want.
And he does it. Yeah, you're like 17 years old, and he's like, "Look, if you don't drive, I don't care if you get drunk here."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember this album being
This
so
album is
significant.
irresponsible parent.
Yeah, I remember this album being so significant, and yet I don't care about it at all. That's so strange.
Yeah,
Even just
it's very
looking
much
at the cover art, I get so nostalgic about it.
It's very
And
much a college album. It's like an album for memories and just like insubstantial. And it's clearly very significant in terms of both their careers. Like Wiz got his whole persona from here, and like they had to make a sequel. They had to make a sequel to it. Like every time they teased doing a sequel to it, the fan bases were rabid. Like, where's our How Fly sequel? Where's our How Fly sequel? And they did an EP sequel that was like clearly something they wanted to do, or at least Currency wanted to do. And it wasn't like it was kind of more of a musical thing, and people weren't satisfied with it, so they had to do 2009. They did live in concert. So yeah, I mean, there's interesting, like, what's interesting, another interesting thing about it is that the beats ride out the way they do, which I guess the excuse was so you can roll another one, which I think you said in your review was like a lazy engineering choice, which I believe both.
Yeah. Yeah, they do end out a lot, and this was something where it was. This is the first time that I noticed that dude Sledgerin, which I don't think comes up a lot over the rest of the decade, but I did.
Yeah, he's very Wiz adjacent. Or like I think he's pretty much in the rostrum Wiz orbit. I think he's done some with Gucci, I think, and I think he has one EP with Currency. I really like his beats though. I really like the general aesthetic he provides.
Yeah, there was a moment with him where we're going is like Smokee Robinson, especially. Like I really was like interested in what Sledgerin was doing, and then suddenly it was just like, where'd he go? What's going on?
This is like I hear what you're saying about how listen to this a lot and have no real memory or strong feelings on it. I do feel like Currency performs very well on this, and if I listen to it, I probably enjoy it, but then forget. Like, I enjoy the Currency parts of it and the Wiz hooks, but I'd be left with nothing in my hands afterwards.
It's a very weird album where it's like it very much is important to the story of two artists, that one of which is like, I mean, he's soundtracked Fast Furious 7, so that's very important. But otherwise, like, I don't know what to say about it. Yeah, it's very strange. It's a very strange album.
Yeah,
it seems to exist in my memory and nowhere else.
Yeah, I feel like it's something that exists in a memory of people our ish age, because I know you're a few years behind me, but we're generally in the same age bracket. Like if you were around like college-ish age at the time, it was inescapable, and you certainly smoked, drank, partied to it, whatever. And then, but if you're outside that bracket, it doesn't. Right. And it was obviously for the artist evolution, but yeah.
And then eventually Kush and OJ came out, and then
Kush and OJ
was Khalifa.
Yeah, that was Wiz.
And you're like, okay, I get
it. Touchstone. Jets Fool, this is unofficial as fuck. We're ignoring it. Yeah. Smokee Robinson. This is a good take where I got on board with Currency.
Yeah. This is really good. I re-listened the other day, and I was really, I was very
our outstanding tape. One of the best Gangsta Grills for sure.
I love all the parts on a couple songs throughout where he's like, we're gonna try something different here. I'm not gonna talk. I love that drama intro.
Well, this is a Don Cannon. This is a Don Cannon thing. Don Cannon is like forgotten in the.
Oh yeah, he's all over.
But this is Don Cannon. This is not DJ Drama, and Don Cannon was equally like,
because you can hear the
hyped up
production.
Cannon.
Yeah, no, this is an example of how, we're going to get to that eventually. This is a great example of how Currency has evolved in terms of owning beats to himself, as opposed to like the earlier material where he'd kind of be subsumed by them, or you couldn't stop thinking of the primary artist. Whereas you have, for the most part, he'll go over like another artist's beat and he makes it his own. Like even something like Lemonade on Lemon Kush, like, he is leaving his own stamp on that. he'll be able to 187 on a beat. Like he does storytelling stuff. Like everything on here, like he switches modes, he switches tones, he switches flows. It's just a very varied, very fun tape, front to back. I love this tape. It's really good. It's really lively. It's just, Monte Carlo music. That's him going over, I believe, Aston Martin music. That's perfect type of beat for him to go over. I'm just kind of looking at the track list and coming up with you've got Nipsey on here. That's great to hear. He was way ahead of the curve on putting Nipsey on. I think no one except for Snoop put Nipsey on this early.
No, I don't think so. No, I wasn't aware of Nipsey at the time, but I don't remember that being, like, even going back from the mid 2010 stuff. Once I got aware of Nipsey,
and I can still remember parts of that Nipsey verse. He's like, "I'm blowing up emergency 9/11. You can find me somewhere synonymous with currency, hustle." And then you got that whiz hook that comes in, just really fucking authoritative verse. Like, he has one of the best verses on the tape. Only blight on it is, of course, not Big Sean, because I don't remember Big Sean annoying me. Although if I thought about if I listened to the Big Sean verse, I'm sure it's terrible. Dom Kennedy sucks.
Dom Kennedy, yeah.
Yeah, of course.
That was the only song that I was like, I don't like the song.
Yeah, Dom Kennedy is like the herpes of tapes around this time. He circulated everywhere, and he was the cold sore that showed up.
Oh, no. Is there a Dom Kennedy bias on this podcast?
He got better.
I think there was the one mixtape that was good.
I can't say that I ever sought out a full Dom Kennedy mixtape because I don't hate myself. But
well, if you found the one that I can't name right now, you would maybe love yourself a little more.
Okay, I will. I will take. I mean, I respect your opinion, so I will eventually. I mean, maybe.
I'll do the. It was the yellow tape. It was the yellow tape. I think it might have been an album. I don't know if it was a mixtape, but the yellow tape.
Did he flow a second way on that? Because that period.
No.
Of course not.
No. So you gotta buy in or you don't buy in. And if you don't buy in, then yeah, fine. It's over. Done.
Yeah, that was my big problem, was that he would do the exact same. Well, not my big problem, but like one of my big problems was literally the exact same goddamn cadence on everything.
Yeah. That's his thing. So yeah, if you don't like it, then it's over.
I mean, but the thing is, he put Big Sean and Dom Kennedy back to back, and it still didn't kill the tape. So that should say something about how good this tape is.
No, and it's got like the moments where there's original production sprinkled in, or at least in my looking back on this, I could not find, and this was when I was really trying to search for it, like when there's like Candy Lady's Crib or like even Count My Money, like I couldn't figure out where that beat was from. Like that was also part of the fun of it. It's just like,
you have the original audio dope on here as well, which would be probably a keystone series for him.
You're just hearing a little more of like Currency coming into himself and just finding out like, actually, I've got a really fucking good ear for music. Like I listen to good beats and I'm gonna rap over good beats.
Yeah, definitely, yeah, and I feel like that was something that was kind of hinted at by what he was picking previously. That's really flowering on this tape. I listened to this tape a lot, and I really, and I never even thought about the fact that it's canon, not drama. So you have canon here, and then you have drama on Verde Terrace. They're kind of like sister tapes.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, everybody forgets about DJ Cannon, but Cannon. That was a great drop.
Yeah, it's fucking Canon, which is like a song that literally everyone rapped over, including
he just didn't have all the monologues that DJ Drama did, so we forget about it.
Or he didn't yell incessantly like the holiday season.
Real quick, I just added this to RYM, so no one's heard it because I didn't even know it existed until I did the homework for this. So this podcast was of value for that or nothing else. Was Community Service 3, which is I think part of the Southern Smoke series in some way. It has one of the two, I don't know whether it's of interest to anybody, Currency and Soulja Boy collabs ever. On I Fuck You Bitch. What
an app title.
I know. they will apparently be fucking my bitch on that.
That sounds awesome. Can we insert the audio in between our commentary on it?
We'll get on what we'll ask if Wyatt can. We probably can make it happen. But Ski Mask music might be over Ski Mask Way. I don't know. We maybe listen to that in the interim and come back to it. I don't know. I literally just found it the other day and added it to RYM. But Return to the Winner's Circle. Awesome cover art. Just Burt Reynolds. Rest in peace. This is a great tape. I really like this. I thought that was a great way to follow up. Oh wait, did we miss? Wait, no, we missed fucking all the pilot talks. I was going through the
No. This came out.
No mixtape.
No, this came out. Yeah, this did come out after Pilot Talk, and this ain't no mixtape was 2009.
No mixtape. I was just going through the mixtapes on RYM.
Yeah. We were locked in. We got so locked into every early mixtape. Literally
doing the mixtapes, and I completely missed. Okay, this ain't no mixtape because we did. This is a mixtape, and then I just kept doing the mixtapes.
Yeah. This is a problem with these jerks. They just put out too much shit.
That is the problem. But this ain't no mixtape because we did this as a mixtape, and then obviously we should follow is this ain't no mixtape because it wasn't. This was his first alleged. Well, okay, so Currency is funny in that he had, by my count, at least 3 studio album debuts. This one, Pilot Talk, and Weekend at Burnie's, I would say, are probably his 3.
Yeah, from what I remember working in the press at the time, they specifically outlined Weekend at Burnie's as very much vehemently the debut album.
Yes, I remember that being rolled out because She Don't Want a Man was like a single.
And that was really strange to me because I was like,
Pilot Talk, right?
Yeah. He already put out fucking incredible album. What are you talking about?
Yeah, he put out 3 albums, like Pilot Talk 2.
Yeah.
It really felt like they were trying to bury Dame with that and I feel like maybe Currency himself was trying to put Dame in his past with that. And this
Pilot Talk 2 was already in that weird like milieu. Like that was already like problematic. Like they were already struggling with it.
Yeah, I don't know. Like that rollout is fraught.
But anyway, we're not there yet.
We're not there yet. We've already fucked the timeline up. This is another podcast.
Let's go back 2 years. We're in this ain't no
again. Mixtape. Like we'll get even more Tarantino-y with the Playboy Cardi series coming up.
Hey.
But that's a teaser for our listeners. But yeah, this ain't no mixtape, and this came out through Amalgam Digital, which was the first quote unquote label Currency worked with post Cash Money, and this is a very good album. I wouldn't say great album, but it's a very good album. It's and it is the first professional project he's put out, I would say, in terms of sequencing, in terms of who he's working with, in terms of production. Production mostly handled by Monster Beats. Entirely Monster Beats, I want to say.
Pretty much, yeah. If
not, right now,
if not all the way, pretty much entirely. Like Gene LaFerre was one of the producers, and he's on the hooks for a lot of it. Caleb, did you listen to this album a lot?
Yeah.
I want to hear somebody else talk about it before I talk.
Yeah, you want to hear somebody not me talk.
No, I mean, because a lot of the early stuff I didn't have like as much familiarity, but with this one I definitely listened to it multiple times. I think that Patrick actually, in his review, because I was rereading it before we hopped on the call, said something that I thought was interesting, where you reference some beats that have like this like almost like a smooth jazz feel, like a relaxed, very languid feel, and that's where, to me, Currency has always sounded his best over it. And we had referenced earlier in the pod on a number of occasions, he almost found a sound, like he's getting there. I feel like this was like the true start like of Currency, because this obviously is still pre Smokee Robinson, but like when he really found his lane, which would eventually lead into the Pilot Talks. But like the humor was there, the bars were there, like the hooks were there. The features, for the most part, I thought didn't detract too much. Didn't do a re-listen before the episode, but I remember really liking what was it? I remember really liking Galaxy a lot, and there was one more that was also super smooth. Of course,
Elevator Music. This is it.
Yeah. Elevator Music. Yeah.
it had to, yeah.
Yeah. The anything the Currency does that's in that pocket is like going to be instantly like catnip to me. Like I'm in the bag for it essentially. So yeah, definitely like this mixtape, but should have done a more proper re-listen. I'll admit that.
You clearly didn't read.
Ain't no mixtape. Yes, I'm so used to the great that'll.
Well, you had 8 mixtapes before this, but the intro very much spells this out.
Yes, it's the album.
Mixtape on like that was a mixtape.
Yeah,
that was a mixtape. This ain't no mixtape.
Yeah, and I feel like I probably should proper re-listen to this one too, because I remember just thinking, like, even just rereading, just scanning over what I wrote about it, like I remember thinking that Monster Beats was maybe going to be like the next Neptunes, and then they weren't. And this is the biggest project they ever did. And they weren't even brought back for a lot of like Currency projects ever. Like I don't know what happened to these guys. But they had like such an interesting like vibe and sound between the three of them on this album. It was really cool. Like it was really refreshing and fun to like hear them do all this together.
Yeah, I mean, Neptunes is an interesting reference point. I think that they did have an interesting because it was like smooth jazz, like Caleb had on like elevator music, which that's very funny because it like starts with like the sort of like smooth sample and then becomes like something more conventional for a hip hop song. And then Galaxy, which is like more expansive, but then they also have something like 16 Switches, which is a lot closer to like thumping, like New Orleans sound. So they were able to like get a Monsters too. So like they were able to like branch lanes too, in the same way that Pharrell I think was able to do.
Yeah, so I say Neptunes in like a really generous way, because this is like the B movie version of the Neptunes.
Yeah,
like, it's not that, but it could be.
No, I'm like I feel like I'm just kind of taking your thing and running with it. But yeah, go back to the analogy we were using earlier. It's like bargain. It's like the dollar store. Like it's like national. Like you have National Treasure, and this is like national. I don't know, like fucking monument or something. I don't know.
Yeah, sure. No, yeah, I totally, I was just trying to walk back my own thing. I didn't want to say that this is like, if you love the Neptunes, listen to this album, but if you like the Neptunes, listen to this album.
There's no features on here. I think D-Lo gets a little old, I will say, as a hook guy. Like, I feel like they maybe over-rely on him a little bit.
Well, D-Lo and John LaFair are the Monster Beats guys.
Well, then I feel like, in terms of being like budget Pharrell, D-Lo,
right? So they're just around all the time.
Yeah, Jean LaFair, I think Jean LaFair, whatever. I'm sure I'm pronouncing it wrong in one way. That's why
I might be doing it.
Is a better fit. I think that they sound better on Galaxy. Like their performance on Galaxy is the best performance on hooks, whereas I think that on Blown Away, D-Lo is a little obnoxious. The Jet Sun shouldn't work, but does. It's a flip of. It really shouldn't work. It's corny. It's like camera level corny, but shouldn't work, but does. I would say that the only real money he spent in terms of name features, quote unquote, is he gets Young Chris on Sail On, and I think you could probably get Young Chris for like not too many Wawa hoagies at this point, and Cook Up. He gets Bum B. And I think they both perform well from that's my memory. And I think he does a good job portioning out. Like it's not just like his job, Fly Society crew. Like he spaces everything out well. And it's 75 minutes with the bonus tracks. But if you get rid of the bonus tracks, it's about an hour. So that's about the right length. It's good. It's not pilot talk good, but it's good. And again, if you're really involved in it, start with Independence Day. But if you want to start with like a proper album, I think this is a great starting point. I think there's no bad songs here. LOL. I'm also, because one of the weird side, whatever fucking tributaries I got on while doing this project was I started listening to the Cool Kids again. And I realized I don't really like Mickey Fax that much. So Mickey Fax and Amanda Diva on a track probably was really annoying. But
what do you associate? sorry, side tangent. What do you associate Mickey Fax with the cool kids for?
Got him completely confused with Mikey Rocks.
Okay.
And I just made it.
Well,
I'm completely obligated to make.
No,
one
I've thrown you straight into the river.
I once said Lil White was a female.
It's true. That did happen.
Hey.
Yep. So I'm completely obligated to make one completely off-base statement. So, but Mickey
there it is.
I do actually find Mickey Fax to be a little bit of an annoying, super lyrical guy. So,
Mickey Fax was like very much a product of two dope boys, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like he was just always around, always had a verse. Who cares?
Yeah, he had them bars. So now that I remember who he was, as opposed to being Sir Michael Rocks, who will annoy me on a Currency album that's coming right up.
Oh no!
You like? Oh, we're gonna fight.
Oh, I love I love the cool kids. Look at my.
I like the cool kids. I like the cool kids actually quite a bit.
But on Pilot Talk, okay. If we're gonna talk Pilot Talk,
I just meant that one verse on the hangover.
Yeah, if we're gonna skip Jet Files, because we should, then
Jet Files is like in passing type thing. I said that we're gonna talk about soon.
Yeah, then we go Pilot Talk.
The 70s is great.
Okay, fine. Mention something about Jet Files.
The 70s is good.
Go for it.
Okay, fine. 70s is a really good song. And other than that, he does some rapping over like Mr. Nice Watch type J. Cole ass beats that I wish he didn't do. That's it. Yeah, not his best work. I have it as a 7. I don't think it's very good. I mean, I think I have it as a 7. I think it's worth hearing, but there's stuff on here that you can generally kind of move past this. Pilot Talk is a great album.
Great album. A blog era classic, you would say?
Yes.
Yeah.
The only thing I would lose on here is the guy I got mixed up with Mickey Fax a second ago, Sir Michael Rocks. Then he had not been knighted yet. Mikey Rocks on The Hangover is just telling stupid jokes.
That's it. Maybe. Do either of you have an interesting story about this album? Because I don't know if it's interesting.
I don't have any.
But just a waste.
I really just got into it via RYM, which is the least interesting thing anyone could say.
Okay.
So.
That's very true. Yeah, I have no
this was maybe the last album I tried to buy physical. And I hunted it down, and I had to hound a Best Buy salesman to order 3 copies so that I could buy 1. And
at the time it came out, or years later?
At the time that it came out. And I think this is the last album that I bought physical.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, and also that the reason it stood out to me is because at the time I was still writing Pop Matters, and they would usually send us copies. And I didn't get a copy of this album, but I was asked to review it. And I was like, well, I can't get it. Nobody will have it. Nobody's got it. Where is it? I have no idea. And then I hounded this Best Buy guy to bring in 3 copies so that I could have 1. And then I brought in 2 other friends to buy the other 2. And then I finally got to hear it.
It's still sitting in that Best Buy, but I guess
no. And then that saga continued throughout all the other Pilot Talks, especially Pilot Talk 3, which is its own can of worms.
Yeah, that's its own can of jet fuel.
But this album I searched out so hard, and then seeked in such a specific way, and then maybe that kind of colored how much I fucking love it. But to me, it's incredible.
It has maybe my favorite, one of his best intros.
One of the things I really love about this album is that it's one of the best examples, no pun intended, of a hip hop album that does something great with guitars over and over.
Yeah, there's a lot of great live instrumentation on this.
Well, I think this was, and they made a bigger deal about this in the press, if I recall correctly, about Ski not wanting to, because this is something that Wyatt brings up a lot about. You heard this on the Call Out Culture podcast about there was a period where producers were real paranoid about getting hit with that Lord Finesse sampling suit that Mac Miller got.
Yeah.
So they wanted to just do live shit that sounded like samples but wasn't samples. So Ski got the senseis together and just came up with this shit. And I remember that was something he talked about Pilot Talk 2, but it's equally true of this. So, yeah, just
Yeah,
live.
they had a live band for every beat, and then Ski would like remix it and reorganize it. And I think this like speaks to like the ambition of Dame Dash post Rockefeller, where he was just like, well, I mean, I gotta carve my own lane out, and I don't know how to do that other than bring in this like very specific thing, and these like I don't know, this album just like stuns me sometimes when I listen to it. I feel really weird talking about it sometimes because I'm not exactly sure how to explain it, even though I wrote like 7 paragraphs about it.
It's definitely a leap in. It doesn't. It's definitely a leap in ambition without being overbearing about it, is what I would say.
Well, I would say that's a testament to Currency's like charisma that I talked about, and how he feels so down to earth that he can go from doing something where the biggest names he's working with are Bun B and Young Chris. He has Snoop Dogg, Big Crit. Well, I mean, Crit wasn't that big of a name on here. Mos Def. Yeah, and also, I don't know if anybody remembers this, but Mos, Jay, and Currency were supposed to be a group called Center Edge Trajectory that was going to come out now. Yeah, that still waiting on that group album with Mos Def, Jay Electronic, Currency, and Ski Beats. But that song's perfect.
How hilarious would that be if, like, tomorrow they announced that was like going to be a thing? Like, just in 2023, the Jay Elect, Mos Def, Currency trio.
I mean, well,
I feel like that would be the most disappointing album of all time.
It'll be terrible. And also, I don't blame Jay Electronica for it. Not entirely out of the running though, because I believe Yassine is back in the country, given all the features he was doing, and he's also
he was on stage at Colbert.
He was on stage on Colbert. They did the Black Star tour, and he was in the Peppa's video for West Side Gun. So there's all that, and Jay Elect was on the Pilot Talk 4. So there's clearly still stuff.
In any case, I want to give like some very specific shout outs to a couple of songs on here. First of all, I just want to say Breakfast is probably the best Currency song that's ever been recorded.
It's amazing.
Top 5.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah, I love it.
It's like a distillation of like what makes Currency great, honestly.
Right, and I don't think there's competition for it, and so that's also like really fun that Mos Def was somewhat involved in that in some way. There is the like bootleg version that you can hear where there's less trumpet, which is like the original Mos Def beat, but it's still just that drum beat is so good. And then Life Under the Scope is pretty much unassailable to me.
The last two songs are so good.
Yeah. Stolly, this was a moment where I was like, damn, Stolly is up next. And then he had the mixtape like a year after, and that mixtape was really good. And then you never heard from him again, really.
Yeah.
I know he put out other stuff, but it was, and then The Day, like, this is like kind of a pretentious song, but also it fits in the moment of the album. And there's just always these like trumpets and saxophones and everything going on throughout it. And so like the production of the album just seems to like flow the whole time. And considering what the actual production of this album was and how chaotic it sounds like the entire like Pilot Talk era is for Currency, it's incredible to me that this like album is as good as it is. It's honestly astounding to me.
It's so cohesive given how many moving parts are involved. The live instrument sampled, the guests, the Damon Dash element, the rollout, everything. It sounds super cohesive.
The terrible Mikey Rocks feature.
Okay, that even actually works in context. Well, I'd say it works conceptually in context. I just don't like what he's doing.
It's just punchline.
It's
weird. It's weird. I get it. Yeah. I agree.
It's just strange. Dry punchline, and I appreciate the idea of it. Like I see why he's included. I just don't care for it. Like that's sore thumb. And he's also a sore thumb on Mac Miller's Faces, just in a different way. So
sure. Yep. And then if we get into it, there is a thing for me with like Roasted. So I've also seen Currency live twice, which is weird because I also did it as a press person. But Roasted is a very fun song to see live. Like Roasted is cool, and the way that Trademark and Young Roddy like perform their verses. One of the times that I saw it, Currency was in a wheelchair, and he was still just like rolling around, just like doing his little like stuff in the background. That song is so fun. Like I don't know, this album is just almost magical to me. It's not perfect, but it's really good. It doesn't make sense that it's so good, and it's also not great, but it's also almost perfect. I don't know.
I would say it's great. I would put it to great. I have it at a 9. The only part I actively dislike is the Mikey Rocks part, and I think all the features work really well together. The production kind of puts me in the mind of just like being in a plane flying over a lot of exotic areas, and like I think it also kind of there's so many unique moments in the production. Like I love the way that King Kong feels just like lopey, like it's stomping on stuff. Like I feel like that's really appropriate to the title. I think that the weird halting, like Chilled Coffee, I think is a really unique production with its like like that's such a weird pocket to fit in. It's such a weird song to give to Devin. But I think that both of them do an excellent job with that.
That's one that grew on me a lot over time.
Yeah.
And I love Devin, so it's not an anti-Devin thing at all. I love Devin. But I was just like, you think it's going to be perfect, and then it's like not, but then it grew on me.
Well, it's an angular song. I would describe that song as angular, like the flow that they both have on that, and then like the story, like it's a story song which fits Devin perfectly, but it's not like the sort of song you would expect Devin and Currency to do together. And then the last songs are just like the perfect emphatic ending. Like funny how a 1 3-hour flight can make your life change, and then Currency just kind of speaking about like his whole life on Life Under the Scope. It just flows together really, really well. I'd say this is great. It's not perfect, but it's great. I would,
I think it's a great record. I think it is a clear, like, the real point when Currency started to get on a true hot streak.
I don't even think it's the start of a hot streak. I think it's like the peak of a moment, and then suddenly, like, now he can just ride it for the rest of his career, honestly. Like, it's been really weird to follow. I feel like afterwards,
anything, and it made the subsequent series that follow feel special in comparison, because you had this first one that I imagine, and once again I wasn't around at the time really, listening to Currency, but this had to have made some new fans for sure. I would think anyway.
Yeah, and then again, like being somebody that was like already pretty, like I wouldn't say fanatical, but I was like following him all the time. Specifically, again, I mentioned Roasted live, but even just on the record, the way that the piano just like jabs all the time, like that's like some really strangely musical stuff for a rapper like this to have on an album, and it really like struck me, especially coming right after Breakfast. It's just like, this is a very specific sound that's going on here, and it goes back to This Ain't No Mixtape, where it's like he's going for this jazz thing, but now it's like, here it actually is. Like, it's not just like made up or like a fantasy. It's like actually here, right here in the sound. And it, like, those two songs back to back just like really struck me then, and still, like, if I listen to this album, they hit me today.
Yeah, I think you can trace the ambition back as far as even something like Christmas in October, and then like what he's rapping. Well, that's the first time he rapped over Respiration, and then like the jazz ambitions, and then the stuff on This Ain't No Mixtape you can see is maybe a little ironic or just like kind of flirting with it, because he's doing like elevator music, like elevator jazz, quote unquote, and like smooth jazz type things. But then he has the opportunity to work with like real live instrumentation, real vital stuff. And he's doing genuinely ambitious things. The way things are the songs play off each other's motifs and everything. Like genuine music ambition. Like, and also again, like
really integrating like guitars in a way that's not fucking corny. Like Seat Change should not, like, he actually gets a motivated ass performance out of Snoop Dogg, like a real technical verse out of Snoop on a guitar-based song. That should not happen, but it does. Like what he gets out of these guests, like, I mean, the fact that he gets Most Def and J Electronic on a song, that's fucking momentous right there. That's like, consider like
100.
ever happened once ever.
Yeah, not
No,
many
I
artists
think-
could even have that kind of pull. Like,
Well, I would say that's probably more of what the DD 172 shit was at the time.
That was different, yeah.
Because that was also like J Electronica was like wrapped up in all that. Like that was supposed to be like this incredibly like artist forward movement, and then like for whatever reason, I can't even remember all the details about it, but it just stalled so fast.
Dame stole everyone's money is the best.
Yeah. I mean, why not? That makes sense. If I remember correctly, there were like all kinds of loans and stuff. Like there was a lot of money stuff involved. But Pilot Talk 2 is still good. But anyway,
Pilot Talk 2 was still. I would say almost the equal. I guess we can address
the first half of it, like the first 6 songs, is one of the best runs on any Currency album, I think. Like,
I guess we can address the elephant in the room right away. How do you feel about Silence?
Sorry, I heard Silence. How do I feel about what?
How do you feel about it, the song? I thought you were making a joke for a second.
Oh, no. I thought, because then you said Silence and then I heard Silence.
Yeah, like I know that's like a real big like sort of deal breaker song for people. And originally, the reason the like plays out the way it does is because Wiz was supposed to be on it. And if you search, you can find the Wiz verse. It's not very good.
Yeah,
but label.
I had to look back. I hate that song.
Yeah, you did.
Yes.
Yeah,
I had to look back. I listened to Pilot Talk 1 and 3. Not a lot. I mean, I don't listen back to a lot of stuff, honestly. I like to listen to new music all the time. But looking back, yeah, I hated Silence. I hated that. It sucked. And I remember why. It just seemed like it was trying to force your old nemesis, Mackenzie Eddy, on everybody.
I mean, she wasn't my nemesis. It was more that it was like, it was like definitely felt like a backdoor pilot for a Mackenzie Eddy song. But if you listen to the Wiz version, like the reason you get so much of her is because Wiz was taken off of it. So they just let her do her thing for the part where you'd hear Wiz. And then you get Silence. But I really love, like, I think that's a unique beat to hear him on. And it kind of plays the musical ambition that was on Pilot Talk 1 with, like, the piano and, like, the cold feeling to it. And I just love, like, his flow on that where he's, like, silent footprints in the snow, assassin approach. Like, he paints a pretty vivid picture on that. I don't know. I always liked that song, but I felt like you're not alone in disliking it. Just having talked to other Currency fans who are like, yeah, it's just like somebody else's song.
And then also this
was the vibe of the album.
This is probably the one moment where I guess I would say I am maybe a Dom Kennedy fan-ish. Maybe not. But that Dom Kennedy and Mackenzie Eddy, like 1-2, really like sinks this album for me in a way that I don't like.
Yeah, those 2 songs were placed terribly after the run that this album starts with, because Airborne Aquarium is one of the best songs he's ever made.
Airborne Aquarium is the best songs ever. Like,
I mean, Famous is also one of his best songs ever. Michael Knight is an amazing song. Like,
Michael Knight's hook is so stupid, and I love it.
It's so like early 2010s. It's so stupid.
I will say, yeah, that song was. I genuinely remember the first time I heard it, just laughing out loud. I was like, "You're going to talk about this Baywatch guys? What was his name? But his other thing where he was the action star. What was his name?
David
Hasselhoff.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I just remember him eating a cheeseburger now.
Hasselhoff reference in like 2 exhaustive rapper discography episodes. Gucci has a song about Knight Rider. That's really fucking bad. Anyway,
but yeah, what a strange like reference point, but also a great song.
It was a cool TV show. I remember that.
Yeah, Mr. Feeney from Boy Meets World was the voice of Knight Rider, I believe.
Oh.
Yeah, rest in peace to his last name was Daniels, but he died recently. So rest in peace to Mr. Feeney.
Do we think that, like, I mean, Famous is like the prototypical like Currency beat, I feel like, just in terms of, like, if I think of a Currency song that would describe him perfectly, I think of Famous. Like, I love the long drawn out, like, still, like, I love everything about that song. The horns, the way it even comes on. Like,
yeah, it's an incredibly produced song, and it's maybe the last time that we really see like Monster Beats have a moment with him. But at the same time, I'm always going to be partial to Breakfast. To me, that's just like
you're still going to be partial to Breakfast.
It's just like a quintessential, like, to me, that was what solidified why I'd been listening to Currency for so long. Because again, at this time I was still like smoking a bunch of weed or whatever. But it was like, yeah, we're just gonna play NBA 2K and hang out with some girls that don't care that I'm playing NBA 2K, and I'm gonna be like in gym shorts and whatever. Like, that song is just so specifically Currency. But Famous is like right up there for sure. Yeah.
Hold On, I think, is a sleeper great song from here. I think that's one of their best posse cuts.
Mm-hmm.
The play off of each other are really good. I really like the way that he kind of set like ad libs the beginning of his verse. A crib for you, my dogs, a yard for my main bitch. I am a man and I shall remain stainless. Like, he kind of does that under the beat and then he raps it in. Like, I love that. I love those little like moments in Currency songs where you can just hear him having fun with the music. And I love the rolling bass line in that, and I love the hook on, like, Hold On's probably my second or third favorite song on here behind Airborne Aquarium, which is definitely a top 5 Currency song for me. Like, top 5. Like, that song
it packs such a punch.
Unironic way. Like, the way he just like goes at that for 3 minutes straight is nuts.
Yeah, it fits so much into like a short song, and yeah, it's just incredible. Like, that he sound. I mean, I'm trying to think of a pure rap performer. I mean, it's going to come up on a EP that we'll talk about, down the road here in this episode. But the only thing I can compare it to is something off of Cigarette Boats, which we'll get to eventually. But yeah, love Airborne Aquarium. Love like most of this album, outside of those like 2 awful songs in the middle.
I wouldn't call Real Estate an awful song. I actually love that Oceans in the back, Pushes in the front. Like, I think that's a great hook, and that visual is great. Dom Kennedy's verse is fucking terrible. He's like, You like that drink? How about some pre-com? Like, how about not? How about not putting pre-com in girls' drink? How about not being a sexual predator? Like, consider doing that.
Yeah. He predated She Didn't Even Know It too. That's crazy.
Yeah, I guess it was influential.
That sounds a bit like a new recipe for a dirty martini. It sounds.
Yeah, he was really dipping his olives in that dirty martini. That's
yeah. All right.
It sounds terrifyingly okay.
I think it's almost equal. On some days, I would say equal to the first Pilot Talk. I think they're very much companion now. I love this album, but it's not quite equal because, again, like, even though I'll defend Silence, I will say that's terrible album sequencing. Putting those 2 back to back was not a wise move.
What do you guys think about the choice to have Raekwon on the Michael Knight remix?
I mean, it's fine. Whatever.
Yeah, I think he did solid.
I think is this the one where he says he spent the past? Okay. I used to think he said spent the past year making shitty investments, but then I think he says making sheer investments, and that sounds like more of a Raekwon line. But I think
making shitty investments would be hilarious, though.
That would be great. That would be like an interestingly like candid rap bar. It'd be like, spent the past year making shitty investments, and like the way Raekwon sounds pissed off all the time, that would be a really funny line. So yeah, it's interesting. Like, the second half of this is definitely less well sequenced than the first one, because the second half does trail off compared to the first, whereas I think the first one's like airtight through and through. Hey, speaking of, the next one, Airtight, is the next Currency release, which this, I'm sure neither of you heard this, because Wyatt actually unearthed this, our producer. This was a dead tape on Dat Piff that he had to recover.
Yeah, have not heard, but shout out to Wyatt, the
Indiana.
reviver of tapes. Yeah.
This one, I think, if you're interested in Nodima, if you're interested in still hearing some jazzy currency, this is probably the last super jazzy thing he ever put out. Is the first part of this. So I would look this one up if that's something you're interested in. And the second half is stuff you've already heard. But in the interest of time, we're not going to really dive too far into this. The cover art's not great.
Sorry, you didn't name it. Is it Airtight?
Oh, Airtight, yeah.
Airtight. Yeah.
Is the next one?
No, I don't know it.
Yeah, well, because it was actually lost. It was something that was put out to be originally promoting Car Chronicles, which was a whole that was a real fraud. Yeah. That was a whole fraud rollout. So this was something that was like more live instrumentation type stuff. It was more stuff with like the DD-172. And I think when I was looking it up and why it was sourcing it when he unearthed it, there was like one article on the Fader and that was it. So it's like 2-disc mixtape, and then one of it's like original production, more like sort of ski live instrumentation type stuff, and the second disc is like all pre-release stuff. And it was supposed to be promoting Car Chronicles.
Yeah, I see it's a little further down the line, but Car Chronicles was a real bummer.
It was, that was a mess. Yeah, we don't get to that for a little bit, but
yeah.
Oh, kind of spoiler alert, not his best work. What was
in a happy moment? Let's talk about Alchemist.
Yeah, let's talk about the Alchemist and some of his best work, Covert Coup EP, which is his only bolded release on RYM, I believe.
Really?
I was looking through as a page today.
Wait, is Sigboats isn't bolded?
I don't.
It is, but it's under the Spitta Andretti moniker.
Oh yeah, because Spitta Andretti has his own page because. Shout out to
we have our feet firmly planted on the ground on RYM. That's
intricacies.
That's right. Shout out to bureaucracy and pedantry. So he has 2 bolded releases: Cigarette Boats with Harry Fraud, and this one with Alchemist. Interestingly enough, both producer collab EPs. I fucking love this tape. This is up there with Pilot Talk 1 as his absolute top shelf. I don't know this term S tier. Is that what you kids say?
Yes, S tier. Yes.
I fucking not a thing I would change on this. Not a hair out of place.
Yeah, this is really, really good. I mean, I guess we just do Scottie Pippen off the top just because it's the iconic song and it's basically like
Freddie Gibbs does kind of steal the tape from him. I will say
it's unbelievable. Amazing. I mean, all-time Gibbs verse. I mean, what else is there to even say? Like, one of the best verses he's ever spit. So, I think Patrick, when we did our Gibbs episode a long time ago, did we talk about his feature on this? I forget.
Sure, I mentioned at least Randall Donovan or Michael, like, because that's one of my favorite like sports references in hip hop of all time.
Yeah.
Like running something like I ran quarterback for the Eagles, Randall Donovan or Michael. Yeah, like that. So, but everything about that Gibbs verse is so tough. And the fact that on a tape that has no bad verses from anybody, like even Smoke Dizza back before Smoke Dizza was really that good. But one of the last great Prodigy verses, incredible Fiend verse. Just for the sound of how his voice is alone, honestly. Because this was Fiend, where he was that brief period where he put out like 7 Jet Life tapes in a year and then disappeared again.
Yeah, Fiend is an interesting one.
Style than he used to have. He came back and he was like, like fucking Don Draper all of a sudden.
He has really like a really good presence. I always kind of thought Fiend was a little like underrated from that era. But yeah, he's great on here, and the Prodigy is great on here, and there's really not much that I don't think I love it quite as much as you, but I think it's still like a great EP, and obviously a fruitful collaboration that would show itself down the road. I was kind of laughing to myself at the Diction review. That's like from back in the day. That was like, I'm not gonna like Alchemist because of this, and I'm not gonna like Currency because of this. So shout out to Diction. But yeah, don't have that much to say other than like it's great. Yeah, I mean,
One of the things I like about it is that it kind of takes the guitar sounds out of Pilot Talk and meshes them with like Alchemist, the style he was doing with like flipping prog rock around this time. And so it really feels a piece with both of their works.
yeah, I mean, they always like they're able to mesh, and it sounds
relevant. It's also very relevant because like this is the beginning of like, I mean, he'd rapped over Alchemist stuff in the past, but like they'd never like original production, and they'd obviously had a very they'd done so many projects since, like 4 or 5 after this. So, and people were begging for a sequel to this.
Yeah, and they finally got one years later, but
and yeah, I think that's kind of why I guess Nodima was alluded to how Car Chronicles was such a bummer, is like because you had the guitars on Pilot Talk, you have stuff on here like it starts off like Blood, Sweat, and Gears. BBS I think has a guitar on it as well. Like there's rock influenced stuff on here because that's the sound that Alchemist was messing with. Like you'd think that Currency doing something with like actual doing the rap rock thing would turn out a lot better than it did.
Mm-hmm.
So. But yeah, I think this is exactly. I don't know if it's my favorite of the. I mean, I love it, and I've lived with it longer than all the other Currency Alchemist stuff. But given how good Fetty is, I don't know if it's my like. I'd say it's probably tied with Fetty, just because you can't argue with getting this plus having Freddie Gibbs on every song.
Yeah, I think I would probably prefer Fetty only for the simple fact of you are getting Gibbs on every song, and on that tape, he's so sharp on every song that I would say that I'd prefer it overall. But yeah, that would be.
Shout out to, since I know that kids love anime these days, shout out to the Full Metal Alchemist flip on Full Metal.
Yes,
that's elegant. Yeah, I love this tape. I wish I had more to say about it eloquently, but
I feel weird not saying a lot about it only because I know that it is very well produced and Scottie Pippen is an amazing fucking song, and yet I never cared about it that much.
I know your review. Yeah, that's the thing. Is I feel like the elephant in the room is that you gave it a 3.5, and you're like, yeah, the second half of it sucks.
and this was part of. So going back to, I had mentioned early on, I had tried to reach out to to Musa, Currency's manager, and be like, hey, I'll take a 3-day trip down to New Orleans and like go hang out at the car garage and the burger store and whatever. And I was like, look up all my Pop Matter stuff. And then I looked up my own Pop Matter stuff about Currency. And I was like, oh, it's all 6 out of 10. Like, that's not very flattering. I was like, oh, Jesus. Never mind. Of course you don't want to talk to me. But yeah, I don't know. There was something about it that didn't really hit for me. I don't know what it was. Maybe I was just listening to too much stuff at the time.
Yeah, I could see not being in the mood for it because it is like a lot of the dark palette. I don't know. But I don't know. I always wondered why you didn't resonate with you, but sometimes shit doesn't hit.
Right. Well, I mean, this is where I go dark on Currency in general, right? Or not dark, but just I go like average. And maybe it's just because I listened to it so much at the time, like when it really like mattered, mattered to me. Because I think we're gonna see like I'm not really like really all that excited about anything else that he did. Though I still love it. Like I still like listen to it all the time. It's just like sometimes I don't get so excited. And I don't know why that is.
Sometimes. I mean, it's not going to be like our Wu-Tang episode where it just kind of devolved into being like RZA's an asshole. Yeah.
No, and actually now that I'm looking at this, yeah, actually there's going to be some EPs that I'm pretty happy about. So yeah, let's keep going.
We moved on to so this is the one that you'll have an interesting perspective on this because you talked about coming out from the press side. Weekend at Burnie's, which was they really wanted you to think was his debut album. And
yeah, that one is so strange.
Super high on, although I do like aspects of it a lot. One aspect I don't like is the cover art on this sucked.
Yeah,
really tacky. Yeah, this has some of my favorite songs of his, but it feels kind of lifeless, I would say. Interestingly, Marshall gave this a 3.5, and I never thought Marshall ever had that many things in terms of like Currency opinions one way or another. But wow,
oh, yeah,
I think he liked I think he liked the Pilot Talks. I don't remember. He called it like one of the best. He called it like the best trilogy in hip hop. He also said there wasn't much competition, but he did call it the best trilogy in hip hop.
I mean, fair.
I believe so. Yeah.
Fairly taken, but it's interesting because he's like the first. Like I have it filtered. I always have my ROM reviews filtered by positive because I try and
not read negative stuff. Yeah, yeah.
Right. And that's why Thrental's reviews always come up last. And yeah,
Wow.
But yeah, Marshall came up before you, Nodima. So interestingly, although you both have it at 3.5, I guess that's just alphabetizing. I guess at that point we just resort to alphabetizing. But yeah, some of my favorite stuff on here, I love hashtag pound sign whatever Jets go. He always has great openers. I think the first 3 tracks are really strong.
Yeah.
I think Money Machine and What's What are really strong. I like the Fiend feature a lot. But yeah, I feel like there's just generally kind of like a airless, lifeless atmosphere in this compared to some of his earlier work. And it feels workman like compared to like the hangout atmosphere of the stuff I liked prior.
Well, and I think this is maybe like the criticism that I'm gonna have going forward, even with the stuff that I like. Like I really like Bales. I really like Cigarette Boats. It's just that there's a point where it's just like, have I listened to too much Currency? Like at some point, you just feel like you get it before you got it. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And it's all about like the production that he chooses, which is almost consistently incredible. So that's like not even really a critique, but just like it's just like not as interesting as it was at one time, or like it's really hard to put into words because this is a person that I've been listening to since I was for like 20 years now almost.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was in re-listening just here and there for this episode. It was a little better than what I gave it credit for. Mainly, like Patrick said, that like starting run, and also Money Machine. I think you mentioned that, Patrick. Money Machine is like is a great song, but overall, it is kind of just like workman like was a good way of putting it. Where it's just kind of like you get in, you get out. You've got about like your 40 minutes. It does enough to showcase like what Currency's really good at, but it doesn't really show why. Like it doesn't offer the same level as like the other two, like the 2 Pilot Talks, for example. Like it doesn't rise to nearly that level.
Yeah, it just doesn't feel as lively, alive. I don't know, something about it. It just doesn't hit the same, for lack of a better term, because I can't point to it. Like I'm looking at my review here, I'm looking at my notes, and there's nothing I would call bad. Like This Is the Life hook, maybe Get Paid hook's a little repetitive, but overall, like, yeah, it has a great opening run. He's rapping as well as ever about the same stuff as ever. Monster Beats is on the production. Although I would feel like the production here just, again, doesn't feel as lively as the jazz stuff on This Ain't No Mixtape, but it's certainly not bad. But it just, something about it. I don't know. But
yeah, and that's kind of what I'm getting at. Is there's nothing to actually say negative, and that kind of made it less interesting to me at a certain point to like write about. Is like there's just good music here, and what do you like? And it's like a lifestyle thing at that point. It's just there's no real like critique to have,
Mm-hmm.
Well, I suppose one thing you could critique though is Muscle Car Chronicles. Is Muscle Car Chronicles? I'm gonna go back to the. Oh no, we actually have something that I do have strong feelings on. Next is his proper Gangsta Grillz tape. Is because I kept misattributing Smokee Robinson as a Gangsta Grillz, but obviously we established that was canon. But Verde Terrace, which is with drama, not canon, and I would say, I mean, we have to look through the Gangsta Grillz. I'd say this is definitely top 3 Gangsta Grillz tapes, and I would say this is definitely one of the last true to go back, like you said, like I said, and then you agreed that Burnie's was like workman. Like this is back to like hangout Currency. I would say this is back to like the real fun type of Currency that was really appealing in the past.
Everything
And
about
this-
this just fucking
even
works.
from even from the album artwork, it seems like it's a kind of a response to because Cushion OJ came out the same summer. This seems like kind of a response to that in some ways, and it was a lot of fun. I do remember really like enjoying this mixtape at the time. I just don't think about it anymore.
Although, well, even your review starts with "It is what it is." What would you like me to say? Like,
Well, because that again, like I'm kind of alluding to. This is where I'm already going with Currency. Is like at some point he is this dude, and he does talk about what he talks about, and then what do you like? What am I supposed to say to you about that as a critic? Like nothing.
I mean,
Like,
I think
you either enjoy it or you don't.
You're kind of onto something about it being a response to Cushion OJ, because the very first track is, according to my notes, response. I think it's Amber Ice from Taylor Alderdice. So, which I learned recently, based upon all those people I was talking about that I work with that worship Wiz Khalifa. I kept pronouncing it Alderdice, and they were like, "The fuck are you talking about?"
Wow. Yeah.
It's Alderdice. That's the high school.
Yeah. Hell of a over pronunciation there.
Yeah, I don't know. I was really
Real
inventing-
snot
I was
work
inventing
out of you,
sil-
Patrick.
I know. I was like putting but yeah, that's off Taylor Alderdice for sure. So I feel like this was generally him just, I don't know if like a companion, I mean, or a response, same sort of thing. Smoke something. It's worth seeking out because apparently he did send this over to Wayne and Wayne didn't get it back in time, but there's a remix with Lil Wayne, which was definitely notable. And that's the first time they worked together since their falling out. And that was very much in Wayne's I'm 34 years old and trying to relive my childhood phase, because all he does is rap. He raps multiple skateboard bars on that, but quite fun. Everything on here is good. It's mixtape Currency at its peak. Nothing but good beat choices, laid back, in and out, under 45 minutes. Basically,
they're very consistent. I don't have that much to say, only because of it's consistent, not to a fault, but in the sense of like I don't think I'd bring anything interesting to it.
Yeah.
You know.
The issue that we're coming to with Currency is that where he does the same thing consistently over and over. What are you going to say about it? Although we get to Muscle Car Chronicles, we'll have some negative stuff to say. But before we make that stop, return to the winner's circle, which is where we got to, and then we realized that we were way ahead of ourselves. Another mixtape with great beat selection on it. This one has Rainy Days, the Wu-Tang beat. Speaking of RZA, fuck you, RZA. And what else is on here?
Wait, I must have missed a narrative. Why is there a fuck you RZA? I want to do a side
because the last 10 years of Wu-Tang.
Just all that? Just
pretty much, yeah.
Auctioning off an album to
really
Pharmaceutical Boy and everything else? Okay. Yeah, that's fine.
Well, that was pretty lame too. I blame Silver Rings for that as much as anybody. I think he kind of responsible for Silver Rings if you think about it. I think RZA's just kind of like, our Wu-Tang episode isn't out yet. We kind of
okay. This is making me realize I may be way tapped out. I don't know anything about any news anymore.
It's not really so much news. It's just like pretty much everything post. Well, we kind of came to this conclusion collectively over the course of the Wu-Tang episode that we didn't realize we were so negative on RZA. But then once we start covering stuff post like 2000, it's like, wait a minute.
But then,
the positive stuff will come in the
solo episode.
Part 2. Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah. I'm also curious about the Silver Rings tape, but I guess that's neither here nor there. I guess I got to listen to the episode.
Well, Silver Rings is the dude who made the beats for Once Upon a Time in Shaolin, and also, he was all like in RZA's ear and stuff. So,
and I thought Silver Rings was like siloed to a certain moment in time. I didn't realize he was still around. Yeah.
Oh no, I don't think he's still doing anything, but he did the beats in like 2007 for that, and then he put out his solo album. I don't think he's really done anything since like the late 2000s. I don't think he's really like active. But yeah, he seems like kind of a lame dude as best I can tell. And yeah, he was
I think, kind of responsible for telling RZA that this rare art thing was a great idea.
All right. Well, that's an interesting upload. Anyway, currency.
We hope so. Coming soon. And again, you will have heard that one already if you're listening to
Yes. In all likelihood, yes.
Oh yeah. We're a non-linear podcast. Return to the winner's circle. Anyway, it has Rain Delay. We love you, RZA. That's the Rain Days beat. Produced by Max B. Wait, Empire Monopoly is produced by Max B. What the fuck? Max B produced stuff? I did not know Max B was like producing his own shit.
Oh yeah, he was making his own beat. That was like part of the reason that everybody was so excited about Max B. Was that he made his own beats and then he produced his own stuff and he recorded his own stuff and it all sounded kind of like crap. But it was a thing. It was a thing that he was going for. And
no, I mean that was something I did like about Max B was that he certainly went for it. Like he sang all his own hooks and everything. And it was like, but they didn't sound great. But they certainly it was. I did not know he made his own beats too. I don't know who I thought was making his beats, but okay. I like this tape a lot. I did not re-listen to it, but I remember it being just like, again, in the vein of older Currency stuff. I love just good selection of beats, good rapping over them. Maybe like going a little longer. The only because like you have one. Although the rainy days one, like he lets that loop for a while. Like so, he does the How Fly thing a little bit, where he lets things play out, but not every track. So it's kind of weird sequencing. It's also a bit of the DD172 era stuff because you've got a Crit remix on here, and the last track is a Jets posse cut. But it's still under 40 minutes, so it's not an overlong tape overall. It's a fun tape.
Yeah, the intro over the Live Fast, Die Young.
Yeah.
That's definitely a highlight for me personally. So, no, I mean I don't have that much to say overall. I mean, solid tape, and in a similar vein to some of the recent projects we have been talking about.
Yeah. All right. So
I feel bad until we get into a couple of these like Alchemist collabs later on with the EPs. Like I honestly am a little tapped out on Currency for a while.
I mean, I feel maybe we could wrap up at I think Stoned Immaculate is probably where we're going to land the plane. Actually, I say that every episode, but this is probably the best episode to use that fucking cliche.
Indeed. As long as it can land
in
the water and become a boat.
But I think Stoned Immaculate is probably the best one to land because that was his last solo, like yet again another fucking studio album debut. I think that he was trying to launch. So we'll run through real quick. Car Chronicles. He's got a few EPs and then Stoned Immaculate, and then we'll wrap it up for part one. So Car Chronicles. This album kind of sucks.
Yeah, it's bad.
So
I said that earlier, right? I said Car
You did
sucks,
say we kind of alluded to that this was not going to be good, and
it doesn't suck, but it's just boring.
Okay, well, I'll say this: if you listen to it as it was actually released as a 2 CD thing with some guy as a second CD, it sucks. Like Sean,
it's so boring. I actually never wrote about it for anything. I remember getting assigned to this album, and then I never wrote about it. I just said, screw you, editors. I don't want to write about it. I don't want to say anything about this.
Yeah, screw you, woke moralists. Screw you, woke moralists.
This is more like screw you, like labor.
Pop matters.
Advantageous or whatever. But because I was doing it for free.
Damn,
you really
on the grind.
But so this was I think the last thing he formally did as part of the DD172 collective, whatever, Blue Rock, all that shit. And I think it was packaged as a 2 CD where one CD was Currency, and the other CD was some guy, Sean O'Connell, some folk singer type dude. Did a because what goes better with an album of weed raps than an EP of folk singing?
A third LP of Grateful Dead covers.
I mean, that actually probably. Well, that's not actually.
But they didn't do that.
Because he fucking makes a lot of Jim Morrison references on here too.
Great.
I guess what he was. Yeah, what we all need. I can't even find the fucking RYM link on here, man. I'm like driving me nuts. I keep scrolling down. Is it under mixtapes? Should be, right?
Yeah, this is a tough. This doesn't really have a Wikipedia page. It's barely even anything.
2009, 2010. It's okay. It's basically him doing. So he's messing with doing guitar stuff on like guitar-based beats on Pilot Talk and the car. So it makes sense that he would try and do a rap rock. And very rarely does the rap rock fusion work out. It doesn't really work out here. I remember there being like one or two tracks I liked more. What's most interesting about this is the drummer on it is it's one of the Mars Volta old drummers. I get it's either John Theodore or Thomas Pridgeon.
Oh, really?
Tom Pridgeon. Car Chronicles. There it goes, under albums. And yeah, The Strangest Life is the one that I really. That's like the most. Sean O'Connell was the producer on it here. And yeah, he stuck something called "Free at First Light" on the second half, which you can have it if you want it, I suppose. It's.
I'll take it now.
I'm sure
Give it to me right away. Give it to me right away. I want to know.
I'm sure you could probably get it at a bargain. You get three versions. You get two versions of "Fly Out," which is an old track. It has Mike Rocks on it. You get. It's just basically feels like outtakes from just sessions he did for other stuff with live instrumentation on it, and the About It was on Smokee Robinson, and they kind of overlay an awkward new rock beat on it. It just feels awkward. It feels like an idea that he agreed to while he was stoned, that he was contractually obligated to do, that didn't pan out. It's interesting.
I feel like this is kind of the last gasp of that whole experiment that Dame Dash was trying to do, because it was like, I could never tell how much he even had to do with this album, you know? Like, it just seemed so thrown together, tossed off, or whatever way you want to describe it. Like, it never made any sense.
Yeah, it has a bit of a reek of those, like, Cool Key albums, like the Dr. Octagon sequel or whatever, where it got taken out of his hands and, like, monkeyed with and then released to the market. Like, yeah, it's not cohesive. It's interesting on paper and not to listen to. It's one of his weaker.
And yet XXL and Hip Hop DX both gave it 4 out of 5.
Because I think ultimately there's something to this where, I mean, first of all, Dame Dash Paola. Second of all, yeah, there you go. I mean, there's no second of all. That's why they gave it that. But I do think that there is something to the idea of, and this kind of goes back to something we discussed on our recent episode about the Danny Brown and Lana Del Rey albums, where for some reason we spent 20 minutes talking about Lil Yachty at the beginning, and his artistic, like, there's this idea that if you do something that's not hip hop, it's more musical. So I could see him trying to appeal to that here. And I think this proves the point that that's not inherently true. Fuck it. And fuck this album. Moving on. The first 28 EP with Styles P. These two work together a lot, but this is their only formal project together, and it's kind of thrown off.
Not much to talk about here, honestly.
It sounds like Currency and Styles P rapping together for like 5 minutes.
Oh shit! That sounds like the best EP I've ever heard.
I mean, if you like that thing where Styles like talks back to himself on the ad-lib track, he does that here, which I always enjoy.
As long as he makes a Red Dead Redemption reference, then I'm all in.
It's fine. It's totally cool, but it's very short. I always thought they were going to do a whole project together, but they never did. I mean, if anything, seems like an Alchemist project waiting to happen. These two, but Styles seems allergic to doing production that people like for a whole project. Really cheap cover art here, by the way. Exceptionally cheap. I think this is the last time D-Lo shows up as like a vocal feature on something. Currencies, that's of note. The Here EP. I really like this one. This has him going over an obscure fabulous beat. I don't know how to Lullaby. That's the first track. That's one of his best intros. That's the only thing I really super remember from this.
Pay Attention, yeah. That has him going to the Fabulous Lullaby beat. And Conference
Doesn't he
Call
also go over Drive Slow too?
on Cruise Life. Oh yeah, yeah. This has some great fucking beat selection.
Yeah, the beat selection's really good. I remember it being it was like okay. I heard it a long
Yeah, the
time
first
ago.
two tracks are the best, and then the rest is like fine. But I mean, hearing him go over Drive Slow was a lot of fun. The last one's him going over the Biggie the Commission beat. Oh no, like the second to last one's the Shine the Commission, which you did not review this one, Nodima. I think this was your burnout period. So yeah, you did.
This is where I started to get I mean I stuck around for like Cigarette Boats and Stoned Immaculate, but I wasn't as obsessive as I was in the early days.
I mean, I have a lot of positive memory. This was back. This came out when I was about to marry my wife, and so I was doing a lot of commuting by train from Philly to Lancaster, and I listened to this EP. I specifically listened to the first two tracks of this EP a lot on the train from Philly to Lancaster, so I have a lot of positive memories associated with that. So I do have a lot of nostalgia tied up in listening to the Pay Attention specifically. So I'm kind of inclined towards this one. But yeah, it's not super essential, but hearing him go over those specific beats is nice. And yeah, it's just one of the qualities he has. It's just great ear for beats. So if you like hearing him go over old beats that not a lot of people choose to rap over, go for this one.
And I would say also this is like, even though this is where we're like getting into all original beats for the most part with his EPs and everything else, like he is already like solidified and continues to solidify. Like he's got an incredible ear for music. Like he knows what music sounds good.
Yeah, I mean, who's going to pick something off of like the Commission? Like, you know, who's going to pick a Shine beat for God's sake? Like that's
right.
He knows he's really digging pretty deep for this stuff.
Yeah.
All right. His only other bolded RYM release apparently is Cigarette Boats with La Musician de Harry Fraud.
The Harry Fraud, yes. The Harry Frog is that
the Harry Frog, as they say in Italy. This is very, very highly thought of for very good reason. It's 15. It's not even 15 minutes. It's airtight. It's fucking wonderful.
It's probably my favorite Currency project. Spoiler. I've listened to this countless times. It's amazing. Leaving the Dock was the song I was talking about earlier when we were talking about Airborne Aquarium, with the just like the rapping and then more rapping, and how he just finds a way to get so much in 3 minutes. This one is a little more like relaxed, I guess, but I love the way he closes the verse, like the one long verse. Just like the way that he hops in between the last couple topics, and then I did it for Slim, Jet Life, and then it just like rides out. And the way he even does like the la 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 la, like that's classic Curren.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this is like the platonic ideal of what you want out of these two together, and they would pretty much try and recreate it throughout the rest of their collaboration. I think it's more interesting on Outrunners because he's coming at it from a much more mature perspective. Like he's rapping about his son, he's rapping about the pandemic and stuff, but it would never sound as fresh as it does here. Like it would never be as like flawlessly not out of place as here.
He's just casually dribbling his way through the song, almost like he's on a basketball court. Like it's I love the like I pulled up drunk talking shit in the lobby of my building, like, you know, the way he just, it sounds so effortless, and no beats I think fit what he's doing better than like Harry Fraud beats, because they're so lush, they're so like spaced out. Like on what is it on
Biscayne Bay?
Biscayne Bay, yes, thank you. That is like the perfect, like just the way it comes on. And also like Mirrors, I think that was my, because I think I listened to Cigarette Boats pretty early on in my Currency listening, but I hadn't heard much Smoke Diss, I'll say that. And like I love the way he comes in with the like right, like I love that verse. So yeah, nothing but positive things to say about this. I will not impersonate rappers or do any poor rapping on the podcast, which I've done many times. But Yeah, great project. 67 Turbo Jet beat is gorgeous to close. So, yeah, I mean, this is.
I love
this
the
is,
way he says that I'm not trying to get into a car chase, but if I do, I highly doubt that I will get caught. Like, just
Yeah.
there's so much dry humor in the way he delivers lines sometimes. Like, everything, such a good fucking tape. This is actually probably better than, it's like everything good. It's all the good qualities of Covert Coup, but with Fraud instead of Alchemist and in half the time. And without so much, like, I could see how you could find Covert Coup, whatever, to be draggy. And whereas this is just like airy, the whole, like, it has like an airier atmosphere to it.
Possibly. Yeah, I think even though I had to step away for a second, but even though I don't necessarily rate this as my favorite EP, and I'm not even sure why as I'm looking at this, I think that this is by far like the most easily listened to like 4-song stretch of Currency out of anything. And even like disregarding all the stuff that I said about Pilot Talk, the first one, like this is just like a really like breezy, like you were saying, just a really breezy, airy, like it's just nice. It's just fun to listen to.
Yeah. And that's like
it's comfortable. It's comfortable.
Harry Fraud beats, I think, inspire a lot of those feelings to me. And really, now, of course, it might depend on the rapper that goes over them. But like with a lot of the artists that Fraud works with, they're able to fit into like his general milieu. But I think Currency does it better than anyone else. Despite the fact that Fraud has had great collaborations with other artists, but like Currency, they seem to be the best, like the top tier collaborations. I think are with Currency. It's just it's a perfect pair.
Yeah, I mean, he's good at getting a lot out of limited rappers. Like, I mean, I love Jim Jones, but I wouldn't argue Jim Jones is like a super versatile rapper, how you would say. But he got like that great late period Jim Jones project out of him. He's the only person I want to hear French Montana rap over, like, ever.
Right.
Much. So, but then
I was gonna say I always associate Harry Fraud with French Montana first. Like that's the only time that it ever makes sense to me.
Yeah, like I feel like like every other time I hear French do anything, it just seems somewhere between mediocre and excruciating. But when you put him for a Harry Fraud beat, it just makes sense. So, and yeah, but so when you actually put him with somebody who's actually versatile and charismatic over any kind of, who can fit with any kind of production, it works perfectly. And I feel like the choice of just aesthetic on this in terms of like what Fraud is sampling, the instruments he's using, just really suits Currency. And like the collaborators he picks here, the Styles verse is great, the Dizza verse is great, everything, and it's all in and out in 15 minutes, so you can play it like 3 times the length of a full album and get a satisfying experience. It's great. It's as good as Covert Coup to me, maybe better depending on what kind of mood I'm in. Really fucking enjoy it. So
it has that like Miami Vice like type feel. Like with the production and whatnot. So yeah, amazing tape. I listen to it pretty much like every summer. It's like perfect summer music for me.
All right, and we're going to wrap up part 1 of our discussion of Currency to Hot-Spitta, Spitta Andretti, whatever you would like to call him, with the Stoned Immaculate, his third or fourth debut album. Which is a debut album that begins with a minute and a half of Wale. Weird reason. Albeit over a gorgeous beat. And it's not the worst Wale verse ever or anything. But it's like, this is supposed to be for the millionth time coming out party as a major artist. And you're just letting somebody else hog your song. That always just kind of like rubbed me the wrong way. Like, it's just such a weird foot to start your album off with, especially because it's like, there are so many other big artists, and I mean, I'm using big artists, heavy air quotes around that. Shout out to friend of the show, Wale. But, you know, he's not somebody that, like, he's had such a close relationship with before or since. It's just a weird choice.
Yeah, I think that's just that's a label machination thing, because he's moving on to Warner Brothers, and they're trying to make Wale happen. and this seems like another moment where they can try to make Wale happen.
It's so fucking awkward, especially because if you think about like it could have worked out better as a song. Like that's a perfectly fine intro without him on there. Like even as a hook. Looking at this, I like this album. I don't love it. I like it. I think the production sounds great. I have no real desire to come back to it. Like I'm looking at, it's just like I'm looking at these songs. I'm like, this all sounds good to me, and I don't really like. I'm probably never going to listen to any of it again.
Yeah, I mean, like I was threatening to say before, I mean, there are some like EPs that come out after this where I'm like, I'm still, and I am still really into the Currency project in general, but this was kind of where I was just like, I guess I get it and I got it, and I don't know what else I need from it. And then also the label is going to experiment with you in a way where obviously they weren't able to afterward because he quickly left like this major label thing. But then it's just still like you pick amazing beats and you rap about the stuff that you rap about, and we're cool. Like I get it.
Yeah,
I think yeah, go ahead.
There's like a bigger sound to it, which sometimes works really well, but sometimes like, you know,
I would say you're right. This is like the one Currency album that really sounds like it's got like a ton of like money behind it, or like just a ton of like promotion at least. It feels big.
There's money on the screen, and I feel like on something like Armoire, Capital, like that shininess really works. No Squares is like a push. Like I feel like that's bombastic in a way that you don't really want out of a Currency Wiz song. Like I feel like that's like a Call of Duty ass beat that's like kind of I don't know, like two relaxed stone dudes. Like they might play Call of Duty. I don't want to hear them rap over it.
Can I go on another digression for a moment because we've been on a few? So I thought that I was not working last night, but I did work. It's a group called City Morgue. Do you guys know City Morgue?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So they played here last night, and when the DJ in the middle of the opener and then City Morgue played, while the DJ was playing, he was playing like System of a Down and AFI and a couple other like big like early 2000s hits, but the highlights on this big massive screen were just all like Call of Duty kill shots.
All right.
And I thought that was like, and I thought that was fucking
screen caps of it, like a fucking Twitch stream or something.
No, just like no, it was not a live stream. It was just highlights. It was like recorded and then like shot up on the screen. And it was just like here's our scores. Zilla Kami's got like 52 or whatever. Like I was just like I don't know. Like, I haven't played Call of Duty in forever, but I was just walking by it and I could tell very specifically this is fucking Warzone, and what is going on? It was just for the whole DJ set. It was just like Call of Duty highlights.
It was very bizarre.
Very, very opposite of Currency's vibe.
Yeah, no, extremely different.
Absolutely, the vibe I get off that beat, yeah, it's like Call of Duty highlight music, like for real montage. That would be the No Squares beat.
Yeah. For whatever reason, you guys just reminded me of that. I was just so blindsided and baffled by it. I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah, but you're right. There's a lot of money on the screen here, and it works sometimes. Sometimes it doesn't. And I mean, what I think is interesting, though, is that he did escape the major label situation and continue to do what he wanted. And I think that he has put out many projects of value since. Maybe he was never the most exciting as exciting as he was back in his peak, but certainly worth talking about, which we will do in part 2. But yeah, this, I don't know, like nothing bad. Like, Corner Boy P, like this is, oh wow, I think this might be the first time. This can't be the first time Corner Boy P has shown up on a Currency project. This absolutely can't be, because he shows up like
no,
he is.
Can't be.
No, but this is the first time I noticed him, which actually does make sense, because he is like, he shows up all the time and you never notice him. Like he's like the fucking mist in the room. I have referred to him before as like a lyrical mist. Like his verse is over and you can't say a thing about it. Yeah, if I had to pick something that like to take away from here, I guess Privacy Glass, Armoire, Chains features fun. I don't know. I think that you've never heard him before or since with Pharrell. That's a goofy ass Pharrell feature, but it's fine. I don't know. It feels like kind of a down note to end the show on. It's certainly like if you're doing the whole Currency run, it's worth hearing. It's not bad. It's the most expensive thing you'll hear him on. It's like the most. It's like, yeah, he got an expensive car. He's taking an expensive car out for a ride. It doesn't really suit him, but it's as good as you're going to get. I mean, out of him doing the major label thing. And if I recall correctly, there are a bunch of issues of this that have better songs than the 12-song issue. Like I think Audio Dope 3 is on one issue of this, and that's a genuinely amazing song.
100%.
One issue.
And if we're gonna do like the rate your music run, for whatever reason, Pixies fan Yo shows up right under and he just says rename him Consistency. And I feel like that's honestly where I was like starting to land at this point. I was like, yeah, he's just incredibly consistent.
I can't really say it any better.
Yeah,
and I don't mean that in a bad way.
No. But
there's a reason this guy ranks number 9 on my all-time like rap guy list. It's because I want to listen to him forever, and yet at some point I have no more thoughts.
Well, hopefully we will have more thoughts for Volume 2.
Yeah. I guess that is a bummer thing to say. It's like, I don't know if I have any more thoughts.
I guess always try and tie things up a bit. Best. Out of all the initial projects we've covered here, what would you say the best one is, and maybe best song from that project? If you could pick one for somebody who hasn't listened to Currency in the past, like just pick something out.
Well, I mean, again, if I want to be like,
I guess favorite and best for a new listener.
Yeah, if I want to be an esoteric person, I would still pick like Soul Man off of Independence Day, because for whatever reason, I think that's like honestly very quintessentially Currency, even though it's so early and it's increasingly harder to grasp. But otherwise I'd say Breakfast off of Pilot Talk and the whole Pilot Talk album in general, for sure.
Yeah, I'm gonna say my favorite is probably still Cigarette Boats, but for a new listener I would say Pilot Talk, just in the case that it gives you a good grasp of what makes Currency like so much fun to listen to, especially at his best. And Pilot Talk is him operating at a very high level. So yeah, Pilot Talk, and then definitely if you fuck with Pilot Talk 2, for sure.
Yeah, I'm going to agree that Pilot Talk's probably the best for a new listener. My favorite, just going through the episode, I think I realized Smokee Robinson's my favorite. Maybe because it was the first one that I just gravitated towards and listened to over and over. But as a mixtape, I think that shows off his style is the best, it's the most comfortable he's been. It's a mix of original, and like the choice of old or new beats that he goes over the sequencing just feels so comfortable and fresh all at once. Just really good ass tape. And just song wise, I don't know. I don't think he's ever topped Airborne Aquarium for just going for 3 minutes straight, just like one punchline after another that just landed with me. That was just funny and just clever at the like all at once. So, all right, that's part 1 of us going over Currency to Hot-Spitta. Nodima, thank you so much for joining us. Maybe we'll get you for part 2, maybe not. I don't know if you have any new thoughts that you're going to have on all the 50,000 projects that have come out since. You said you've listened to some of the Alchemist stuff, so we'll see. Yeah, we shall see. But I mean, we have no timeline for part 2, so we'll get to it. But
thank you. I'm really grateful for you guys inviting me into this conversation. I really appreciate it.
We're grateful to have you. I think you got a lot of good insights on everything, and there was really nobody else I wanted to have to talk about this, considering that you were influence on me, Currency, and my writing in general. It was great to have you on the show and great talking with you. So, and we are living off borrowed time. Our intro music, as always, is the Borrowed Time instrumental by Union Class. Our outro music, as always, is Stagnated Pace by Can Kick, and we will see you next time. Peace.
It ain't gonna never stop. 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 Salam.
Time will tell. Time is yet to be conquered by man. But when the time is right, perhaps the greatest revelation of all time will dawn upon us.